They say a woman can survive anything except being forgotten. I learned that the hard way. The night my husband looked through me like I was glass, told me to bear his child, then vanish. My name is Evelyn Harrow. No, Evelyn Blackmore now. Duchess, trophy, ghost. This is the story of how I refused to disappear, how I turned a prison into a kingdom, how one scandal nearly destroyed me, and how I made the man who broke me choose between his demons and losing me forever. Stay until the end, like this video. Comment what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. The wedding night was colder than the February rain hammering against the windows of Blackmore Hall. Evelyn stood in the center of the master bedroom, still wearing her white gown, thousands of pounds worth of silk and Belgian lace that suddenly felt like a burial shroud. The ceremony had been flawless. 300 guests, orchids imported from Singapore, a 7-tier cake that probably cost more than most families earned in a year. Her mother had cried. Her father had looked satisfied finally, after 23 years of raising a daughter like one might cultivate a prize rose. Careful pruning, optimal conditions, all for this single moment of transaction. And Adrian Blackmore, Duke of Ashford, 6th of his name, had said his vows without once meeting her eyes. Now he stood by the fireplace in his shirt sleeves, tie discarded, looking at her the way one might regard a newly acquired painting, appraising, distant. "You should sit," he said. "I'd rather stand." His jaw tightened. "As you wish." The fire crackled. Outside, wind rattled the ancient window panes. Evelyn had toured this room once during the engagement, had admired the hand-painted ceiling, the 14th century tapestries, the bed that had apparently hosted visiting royalty. Everything in Blackmore Hall was old, important, and completely untouchable. Like her, she supposed. "We should discuss expectations," Adrian said finally. Evelyn felt something twist in her chest. Expectations. Yes. He poured himself a scotch from the crystal decanter on the side table. Didn't offer her one. "I imagine your mother prepared you for the practical aspects of marriage." Heat crawled up her neck. "She did." "Good. Then you understand the primary obligation." "The primary obligation, not love, not partnership, obligation." "An heir," Evelyn said quietly. "Yes." Adrian took a drink. "The estate requires it. My family requires it. After that, you'll have considerable freedom. The London house, your own allowance, charitable pursuits, if you like that sort of thing. Society expects the Duchess of Ashford to be visible at certain functions, but beyond that," he gestured vaguely, "you may live as you please." Evelyn stared at him. At this man she'd met exactly 4 times before today. Twice at carefully orchestrated dinners, once at the opera where he'd barely spoken to her, and once at their engagement party where he'd shaken her father's hand with more warmth than he'd ever shown her. "Live as I please," she repeated. "As long as I produce a child and then, what, disappear?" "I wouldn't put it quite so harshly." "How would you put it?" His eyes finally met hers, cold gray like winter fog over the Thames. "I'm offering you autonomy, independence. Most women in your position would consider that generous. Most women in my position are actually married to men who want them." The words came out sharper than she'd intended. Adrian's expression didn't change, but something flickered behind his eyes. Old pain, maybe, or just irritation at her failure to be grateful. "This isn't a love match," he said. "I thought we were both clear on that." "We were," Evelyn's voice came out steadier than she felt. "I just didn't realize the arrangement included emotional exile." "It includes respect, protection, security. That should be sufficient." "Should be." "Evelyn, don't." She held up a hand. "Please don't say my name like that, like you're trying to manage a difficult subordinate." Adrian set down his glass with a deliberate clink. "Then what would you like me to say?" "Everything, nothing, something real." "I'd like you to tell me why," Evelyn said instead. "Why marry at all if this is what you wanted?" For a moment she thought he might actually answer, might give her something honest, something she could work with. But his face closed like a door slamming shut. "The estate needs an heir," he said again. "It's not complicated." "And after?" "After we live our separate lives, cordially, with mutual respect. Mutual respect. From a man who couldn't even look at her during their vows. Evelyn felt something harden inside her chest, something that had been soft and hopeful when she'd woken up this morning, when she'd let herself imagine that maybe, possibly, this could become something more than a transaction. "I see," she said. "Do you?" "Yes." She met his gaze directly. "I understand perfectly." Adrian nodded, seemingly satisfied. "Good. Then we have an understanding." "We do." He moved toward the door that connected to his private chambers. "I'll give you time to settle in. We can discuss the practical arrangements tomorrow." The practical arrangements. Bedroom visits on a schedule, probably. Clinical. Efficient. "Adrian." He paused, hand on the doorframe. "Yes?" "When you look at me," Evelyn said quietly, "what do you see?" His shoulders stiffened. For a long moment he didn't turn around. "I see the Duchess of Ashford," he said finally. "That's what matters." Then he left, closing the door behind him with a soft click that felt louder than a slam. Evelyn stood alone in the enormous bedroom, her bedroom now, supposedly, though nothing in it belonged to her except the wedding dress she was wearing and the small trunk of personal belongings that had arrived earlier. She walked to the window and pressed her forehead against the cold glass. The grounds of Blackmore Hall stretched out below, barely visible in the darkness. Hundreds of acres, gardens that required a full-time staff, a history that went back centuries, and somewhere in this massive ancient house, her husband was probably pouring himself another drink and congratulating himself on a successful negotiation. Evelyn closed her eyes. She'd been raised for this. 23 years of training, how to walk, talk, pour tea, manage servants, host dinners, smile at precisely the right wattage. Her mother had drilled into her that marriage was a career, that love was optional, but excellence was mandatory. "You're marrying into one of the finest families in England," her mother had said while fastening the pearl necklace around Evelyn's neck that morning. "The Blackmores are old money, real aristocracy. Do you understand how fortunate you are?" Fortunate. Evelyn opened her eyes and looked at her reflection in the dark window. The perfect bride, the perfect duchess, the perfect ghost. "No," she whispered to her reflection. "Not yet." The first month was a masterclass in isolation. Adrian maintained separate quarters, separate schedules. He took breakfast in his study, lunch in town, and dinner, when he bothered to come home, alone in the formal dining room unless they had guests. Which they did, frequently. Because apparently, while Adrian had no interest in actually being married, he very much needed to appear married, and Evelyn, it turned out, was quite good at playing her part. "More wine, Lady Pemberton?" "Oh, you're too kind, darling. Adrian, your wife is absolutely delightful. Wherever did you find her?" "The Harrow family," Adrian would say smoothly, as if Evelyn weren't sitting right there. "Excellent connections." Excellent connections. Like she was a telegraph line. But Evelyn smiled, poured wine, asked about Lady Pemberton's children and Lord Ashford's new horses, and whether anyone had seen the new production at the Royal Theatre. She was perfect, and utterly, completely alone. The staff was polite but distant. Mrs. Brennan, the head housekeeper, had made it clear from day one that the household ran on long-established systems and didn't require the Duchess's input. "His Grace prefers things done a certain way," she'd said when Evelyn had suggested minor changes to the morning routine. "Best not to disrupt what works." Translation: stay decorative and invisible. Evelyn tried the gardens instead. Blackmore Hall was famous for them. 12 acres of meticulously maintained grounds, including a rose garden that had been featured in architectural magazines. She found the head gardener, a gruff man named Thomas, pruning the hedges. "Mrs. Brennan mentioned you might want a cutting garden," he said before she could even introduce herself. "There's space near the east wall. I'll have the boys set it up." "Actually, I was hoping His Grace likes the roses left alone during growing season. I'll make sure nothing's disturbed." He'd already walked away before she could finish. Evelyn stood alone among the perfectly maintained flower beds and felt something close to desperation creeping in. This was her life now. This beautiful, suffocating prison where everyone had already decided exactly how much space she was allowed to occupy. She went back inside and found the library. At least books couldn't dismiss her. 6 weeks into the marriage, Adrian summoned her to his study. Summoned, like she was a servant. Evelyn arrived exactly on time, wearing a pale blue day dress that her mother had insisted projected gentle competence. Whatever that meant. Adrian was at his desk, reviewing papers. He didn't look up. Close the door. She did. Sit. I'd rather stand. His pen stopped moving. Evelyn, you asked me here. I came. But I won't be ordered around like staff. Adrian finally looked up, and there was something almost like surprise in his expression, as if he'd forgotten she could speak. As you wish. He set down his pen. I wanted to discuss tonight. The Worthington dinner. Yes, it's important. Lord Worthington sits on several boards I need support from. His wife is influential. I know who they are. Good. Then you understand the evening needs to go smoothly. Oh, Evelyn felt that familiar twist in her chest, the one that came every time Adrian made it clear she was a prop, not a partner. What exactly do you think I'm going to do? She asked. Throw food? Insult the hostess? Of course not. Then what? Adrian's jaw tightened. Lady Worthington can be, particular. She values traditional arrangements, conservative values. And you're worried I'll, what? Express an opinion. I'm asking you to be aware. I'm always aware, Adrian. I'm perfectly aware that my job is to smile, agree, and make you look good. Evelyn heard her voice rising and didn't care. I'm aware that I'm supposed to be seen and not heard, decorative and compliant. Is that traditional enough? You're being dramatic. I'm being honest. This is important to me. Everything is important to you except your actual wife. The words hung in the air between them. Adrian stood slowly. That's not fair. Isn't it? Evelyn stepped forward. Tell me one thing you know about me, Adrian. One real thing. I know. Not my family connections, not my education credentials. Something real. He stared at her, silent. You don't know, Evelyn said quietly. Because you've never asked. Because I'm not a person to you, I'm a function. That's not true. Prove it. Adrian's hands clenched at his sides. For a moment, something like frustration or maybe pain crossed his face. You think this is easy for me? He said roughly. You think I wanted? He stopped, swallowed. This arrangement protects us both. From what? From disappointment, from... He turned away. It doesn't matter. It does to me. Well, it shouldn't. The coldness in his voice was like a slap. Evelyn felt something break inside her, some last fragment of hope she'd been nursing despite everything. I'll be ready at 7, she said quietly. I'll wear something appropriate. I'll be charming and traditional in everything Lady Worthington values. I'll make you look good. Evelyn? Is there anything else? Adrian's shoulders were rigid. No. Then I'll see you tonight. She left before he could say anything else, before the tears building behind her eyes could actually fall. The Worthington dinner was exactly as tedious as expected. Lady Worthington held court from the head of the table, expounding on her various charitable projects, which seemed to consist mainly of organizing benefits where rich people congratulated each other for being generous. Of course, one must be careful, Lady Worthington said, her diamond necklace catching the candlelight. True charity requires discernment. We can't simply throw money at problems without understanding their root causes. Absolutely, murmured several guests. Evelyn, seated between a banker's wife and someone's elderly aunt, smiled politely and said nothing. The issue with educating the lower classes, Lady Worthington continued, warming to her topic, is that it creates unrealistic expectations. A shop girl doesn't need Latin. A factory worker's daughter won't benefit from literature. We must educate people for their station. The banker's wife nodded enthusiastically. Evelyn felt her jaw tighten. Across the table, Adrian caught her eye. A warning look. Be aware, he'd said. Traditional values. Don't you agree, Duchess? Lady Worthington had turned her sharp gaze on Evelyn. You must have thoughts on women's education, being so recently finished with your own. A test, obviously. Every eye at the table was on her. Evelyn smiled. I think education is valuable regardless of one's station. Well, of course, but for instance, Evelyn continued smoothly, my mother's lady's maid taught herself to read using discarded newspapers. She now manages the household accounts better than most trained clerks. Seems practical to me. Lady Worthington's smile tightened. How progressive. Is it? Evelyn kept her tone light, innocent. I thought it was efficient. After all, why limit talent based on birth when we could utilize it? The natural order, Lady Worthington began, often wastes resources, Evelyn finished. Imagine how much potential we lose by deciding some people aren't worth teaching. The silence around the table was deafening. Adrian's expression had gone completely blank. Lord Worthington cleared his throat. An interesting perspective, Duchess. My wife has always been rather idealistic, Adrian said, his voice carefully neutral. Part of her charm. Patronizing, dismissive. Evelyn felt heat crawl up her neck. Idealism is for girls, Lady Worthington said coolly. Women must be practical. I am being practical, Evelyn said. Wasted potential is wasted economy. But perhaps I'm thinking too much like my father. She smiled sweetly. He always said business required logic over tradition. That landed better. Several men nodded. Lady Worthington looked like she'd bitten a lemon, but she couldn't argue with invoking a successful businessman's logic. The conversation moved on. Adrian didn't look at Evelyn for the rest of the meal. The carriage ride home was silent. Evelyn stared out the window at the dark London streets. Adrian sat rigid across from her. Finally, that was unacceptable. I was polite. You contradicted Lady Worthington, publicly. I expressed a mild opinion about education. You embarrassed me. Evelyn turned to look at him. I embarrassed you by having thoughts? You knew what I asked of you? To be traditional and compliant, I know. And you deliberately... What? Evelyn felt anger rising, hot and sharp. Said something true? Lady Worthington was spouting classist nonsense and you know it. That's not the point. Then what is? Adrian leaned forward, his eyes cold in the dim carriage light. The point is that you have a role to play. That role does not include challenging important social connections because you've decided to be, what? Myself? Difficult. The word hit like a punch. Evelyn stared at her husband, this stranger she'd tied her entire life to, and felt something fundamental shift inside her. Difficult, she repeated quietly. I'm difficult because I have opinions. You're difficult because you can't seem to understand that marriage requires compromise. Compromise, Evelyn laughed, sharp and bitter. You want me to compromise? Adrian, I've compromised everything, my home, my family, my entire future. I've tried to be what you want, who you want, and it's never enough because you don't actually want a wife. You want a beautiful, silent doll you can pose at dinner parties. That's not... You told me on our wedding night that I should disappear after giving you an heir. You've barely spoken to me in 2 months unless we have an audience. You don't know my favorite color, my favorite book, what I do all day, what I dream about. You don't know me at all, and you don't want to. So don't talk to me about compromise when you haven't given up a single thing. The carriage had stopped. They were home. Adrian's face was like stone. Are you finished? No. Evelyn's hands were shaking, but her voice stayed steady. I'm not finished. Not with this conversation and not with my life. You want me to disappear? Fine, but I won't apologize for existing loudly until then. She opened the carriage door herself, not waiting for the footman. Adrian caught her wrist. Evelyn, let go. We're not done discussing this. Yes, we are. She pulled free and walked into Blackmore Hall without looking back. The next morning, Evelyn woke up to an envelope slipped under her door. Inside was a note in Adrian's precise handwriting. I've arranged for you to have use of the London house for the season. You'll find it more convenient for social obligations. The staff there will accommodate your needs. Translation: he was banishing her. Evelyn sat on the edge of her bed, still in her nightgown, and read the note 3 times. The London house. Separate from Blackmore Hall. Separate from him. Exactly what he'd offered from the beginning. Freedom, independence, autonomy. Everything except what she actually wanted. A partnership, a companion, someone who gave a damn. She should feel relieved. Most women would kill for this kind of arrangement. A gorgeous London townhouse, unlimited funds, no hovering husband. Instead, she felt hollow. Mrs. Brennan knocked softly. "Ma'am, His Grace said you'd be moving to the London residence this week. Shall I begin packing your things?" "Yes," Evelyn heard herself say. "Please." Because what else was there to do? She'd tried being perfect, tried being quiet, tried being the wife he claimed to want, and it still wasn't enough, because Adrian didn't want a wife at all. He wanted a ghost. The London house was beautiful, a 4-story Georgian townhouse in Mayfair, with black iron railings and window boxes that probably cost more than most people's yearly rent. Inside, marble floors, silk wallpaper, furniture that looked like it belonged in a museum. Outside, freedom. Evelyn stood in the master bedroom, her bedroom now, and felt the weight of the past 2 months pressing down on her. She could run, pack a bag, take whatever money she could access, disappear into Europe somewhere, start over. Except she couldn't. The scandal would destroy her family. Her father's business connections relied on his daughter's successful marriage to the Duke of Ashford. Her mother would never recover from the social disgrace. And some small, stubborn part of her refused to let Adrian Blackmore win. If he wanted her to disappear, she'd do the opposite. She'd become impossible to ignore. "Ma'am?" The London housekeeper, Mrs. Davies, younger and considerably warmer than Mrs. Brennan, stood in this doorway. "There are calling cards from several ladies. Shall I tell them you're receiving visitors?" Evelyn straightened her shoulders. "Yes, I'll receive them tomorrow. And Mrs. Davies?" "Yes, ma'am." "I'll need a secretary, someone organized and discreet." "For correspondence?" "For a project." Evelyn turned to face the housekeeper. "I'm going to need space for meetings, regular ones, perhaps the morning room?" Mrs. Davies looked intrigued. "May I ask what kind of project?" "Education," Evelyn said. The idea was forming as she spoke, crystallizing from anger and hurt into something solid, something purposeful. "I'm going to start a school." Within a week, Evelyn had 3 things. A secretary named Miss Sarah Green, who had excellent references and better organizational skills, a study filled with books on pedagogy and social reform, and a growing sense that she'd finally found something that mattered. "The literacy rates among working-class women are abysmal," Miss Green said, spreading papers across Evelyn's desk. "Less than 40% can read beyond basic signs, and girls are pulled from school by age 11, sometimes younger. To work? To help at home. Or to work in factories, yes." Evelyn studied the statistics. "What if we offered evening classes, after work hours?" "You'd need space, teachers, funding." "I have funding." Adrian had settled a substantial allowance on her. She might as well use it for something meaningful. "Space can be rented. Teachers. There are women with teaching certificates who can't find positions," Miss Green said carefully. "The schools prefer men." "Of course they do." "If you actually want to do this, ma'am, it won't be popular. Education for working women is considered radical. By people like Lady Worthington." "Exactly." Evelyn thought about Adrian's face across the dinner table, his carefully blank expression, his cold dismissal in the carriage. "Good," she said. "Let them talk." The Harrow Educational Initiative for Women launched quietly in October. Evelyn rented a former church hall in Southwark, hired 3 teachers, and opened enrollment to any woman over 14 who wanted to learn. The first night, 12 women showed up. By November, they had 47 students. By December, Evelyn was being invited to speak at Reform Society meetings, and Adrian still hadn't said a word about it. They maintained the fiction of a normal marriage. Evelyn attended necessary social functions on his arm, silent, decorative, perfect. They smiled for the society pages. They hosted a Christmas dinner that went flawlessly. They barely spoke 3 words to each other in private. Sometimes Evelyn caught him watching her across a crowded room with an expression she couldn't read, something between confusion and something else. But he never asked about her work, never acknowledged that she was building something real, never admitted she existed beyond her function, until the night of the New Year's ball. Evelyn was in the powder room when she overheard them, two older women she didn't recognize, fixing their hair in the mirror. The Ashford marriage is certainly unusual. You mean cold. I've seen warmer arrangements in business mergers. Well, can you blame him? After what happened with Catherine, Evelyn froze behind the dividing screen. Still, the first woman said, you'd think he might at least pretend. The new Duchess is lovely and clearly accomplished. That education project of hers is actually rather impressive. Oh, Adrian doesn't want impressive. He wants invisible. Poor girl. Catherine wasn't invisible. And look how that turned out. They left, still talking, voices fading. Evelyn stood alone in the powder room, hands shaking. Catherine. A previous engagement? A lost love. She'd never asked about Adrian's past. He'd made it clear their marriage was transactional, not personal. His history wasn't her business. But suddenly, standing there in her emerald silk gown with her perfect hair and perfect makeup, Evelyn wanted to know, needed to know. Who was Catherine, and what had she done to turn Adrian Blackmore into a man who couldn't bear to let anyone close? She found him on the terrace, alone, staring out at the winter garden. We need to talk. Adrian turned. The ball can continue without us for 5 minutes. Evelyn closed the terrace door. Who's Catherine? His whole body went rigid. Where did you hear that name? Does it matter? Evelyn, for once, just answer me, please. Adrian's hands gripped the terrace railing. She was someone I knew before. Someone you loved? Silence. Adrian? Yes. The word came out rough. I loved her. Evelyn felt something twist in her chest, even though she had no right to be hurt. What happened? She left. Found someone else. Someone... He stopped, swallowed. It doesn't matter now. It clearly does. No. Adrian turned to face her, his eyes hard. What matters is that I learned my lesson. I learned that trust is a luxury and love is a liability. I learned to keep my expectations realistic and my connections transactional. It's safer that way. Safer. Yes. Lonelier. Perhaps. But predictable. Evelyn stared at him, at this man who'd locked himself in an emotional fortress and decided everyone else should live outside the walls. I'm sorry she hurt you, she said quietly. I am, but I'm not her. I know. Do you? Because you've treated me like a potential threat since the day we met. You married me and immediately started protecting yourself from me. I never had a chance. Adrian's jaw clenched. This isn't about chances. Then what is it about? Survival. The word hung between them. I'm trying to build something here, Evelyn said. Something that matters, and you can't even see it because you're too busy making sure I can't hurt you. Well, congratulations, Adrian. You've succeeded. I can't hurt you because I can't reach you, but you're hurting me anyway, every single day, by treating me like I don't exist. That's not... It is. Evelyn's eyes burned. And I'm done pretending it doesn't matter. I'm done being your beautiful ghost. She walked back inside before he could respond. The ball continued around her, music, laughter, champagne. Evelyn smiled, danced, played her part. But something had shifted. She wasn't going to disappear. She was going to become someone Adrian Blackmore couldn't ignore, even if it meant burning down every expectation he'd ever had. January brought frozen ground and early darkness, and a letter from Miss Green. Ma'am, we have a problem. The landlord wants to triple the rent or terminate our lease. He says the church council received complaints about the type of women using the facility. I suspect pressure from above. What should I do? Evelyn read the letter twice, feeling rage build in her chest. Pressure from above. From someone with influence. Someone who didn't like working-class women getting educated. Someone like Lady Worthington. Or someone married to a duke who wanted his wife to stay quiet and decorative. No, Adrian wouldn't. Would he? She found him in his study that evening. Didn't knock. Did you have anything to do with this? Adrian looked up from his papers. With what? Evelyn slammed the letter on his desk. The church council, the rent increase. Someone's trying to shut down my school. He picked up the letter, scanned it. I had nothing to do with this. You sure? His eyes met hers, cold and offended. I don't sabotage my own wife, Evelyn. Whatever you think of me. Then who? Probably Lady Worthington. Adrian set down the letter. She mentioned your radical project at the last board meeting, said it was setting a dangerous precedent. And you said what? That your charitable work was your own business. How gallant. What did you want me to say? That you supported it, that you were proud of it, that your wife was doing something meaningful instead of just looking pretty at dinner parties. Adrian stood. I never asked you to just look pretty. Yes, you did. On our wedding night. When you told me to give you an heir and then disappear. I never used that word. You didn't have to. Evelyn stepped forward. Every action, every silence, every separate room and separate schedule, they all said the same thing. Be quiet. Be invisible. Don't make waves. That's not fair. None of this is fair, Adrian, but I'm not going to let Lady Worthington or anyone else shut down something good just because it threatens their precious social order. And how exactly do you plan to stop them? I don't know yet. Evelyn grabbed the letter. But I will. She turned to leave. Evelyn. She paused in the doorway. For what it's worth, Adrian said quietly, I do think what you're doing matters, even if I haven't said so. It was the closest thing to praise he'd ever given her. Evelyn wanted to throw it back in his face, wanted to tell him that acknowledgement without support meant nothing. Instead, she said, then prove it, and left him standing there alone. Evelyn found the solution at 3 a.m, sitting in the London House library with a decanter of brandy she'd stolen from Adrian's study and a stack of property deeds. The Ashford estate owned 42 buildings in London alone. Most were residential properties generating rental income, but three were sitting empty. One was a former warehouse near the docks. Another was a crumbling townhouse in Clerkenwell that had been abandoned for years. And the third was a converted schoolhouse in Whitechapel that had closed when the previous owner died. A schoolhouse. Evelyn set down her glass and pulled the deed closer, reading by lamplight. The building had been vacant for 18 months, structurally sound according to the last inspection, large enough for multiple classrooms, already zoned for educational use, and it belonged to her husband. She showed up at Adrian's study the next morning at 8, knowing he'd be there. He was always there, buried in estate business like it might save him from actually living. I need the Whitechapel property. Adrian looked up from his breakfast, coffee cup halfway to his mouth. Good morning to you too. The old schoolhouse, I need it. For what? My program. The educational initiative. We're being forced out of the church hall, and I need space. Adrian set down his cup carefully. Whitechapel is not an appropriate location for a duchess. It's perfect for teaching working women who live in Whitechapel. Evelyn, you said I could use the estate's resources for charitable work. This is charitable work. I meant donations, patronage, not personally operating a school in one of the roughest neighborhoods in London. Why not? Because it's dangerous, because it's inappropriate, because... He stopped, jaw tight. Because I won't have my wife teaching factory workers in a slum. There it was, the real objection. Your wife, Evelyn said softly, dangerously, is going to do it anyway. The only question is whether she does it in a building you own or somewhere else entirely. At least if I use the Ashford property, you'll know where I am. Adrian stood. This isn't negotiable. Everything is negotiable. You taught me that on our wedding night, remember? When you negotiated me right out of our marriage. I'm not asking for permission, Adrian. I'm asking for keys. The building is sitting empty, generating no income, helping no one. Let me use it. And if I refuse? Evelyn met his gaze directly. Then I'll find another building, and I'll fund it with my allowance, the money you give me so I can live my separate life comfortably. Either way, this is happening. Adrian's hands flattened on his desk. You're being stubborn. I'm being determined. There's a difference. Not from where I'm standing. Then maybe you're standing in the wrong place. They stared at each other across the desk. Two people locked in a marriage neither of them knew how to navigate. Finally, Adrian reached into his desk drawer and pulled out a key ring, removed one key, and held it out. The building needs work. The roof leaks. Half the windows are broken. Evelyn took the key, her fingers brushing his. I'll handle it. I'm sure you will. His voice was dry, but something flickered in his eyes. You handle everything. Someone has to. She turned to leave. Evelyn? Yes? Be careful. Whitechapel isn't Mayfair. I know exactly where Whitechapel is, Adrian. I've actually been there. Unlike most of the people we have dinner with. His expression tightened. That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean? I meant... He stopped, started again. I meant that I don't want you hurt. It was possibly the most honest thing he'd said to her in months. Evelyn held the key tight enough to feel it bite into her palm. Neither do I. But she left anyway, because staying in that room with Adrian looking at her like maybe she was real, maybe she mattered, that was more dangerous than any London neighborhood. The Whitechapel building was worse than the deed suggested. The roof didn't just leak. It had a hole the size of a carriage. The windows weren't broken. They were missing entirely. Someone had used the main classroom as a stable, apparently, based on the smell. Miss Green stood beside Evelyn in the doorway, handkerchief pressed to her nose. Oh dear. It's perfect, Evelyn said. Ma'am, I think you're being optimistic. I'm being realistic. Look. Good bones. High ceilings. Natural light, or there would be if we had windows. The location is central to where our students actually live. We can make this work. With what money? The repairs alone will cost a fortune. Evelyn pulled out the estate ledger she'd borrowed, stolen, really, from Adrian's study. The Ashford estate spends £4,000 annually on the formal gardens at Blackmore Hall, gardens that approximately 6 people ever see. I'm redirecting that funding. Miss Green's eyes went wide. You can't just... Can you do that? I have signing authority on the household accounts. Adrian gave it to me himself, along with explicit instructions never to use it, but he'd never actually said that out loud. Besides, what's he going to do? Divorce me over flowers? You're playing with fire. I've been living in ice for 6 months. Fire sounds lovely. Within 2 weeks, Evelyn had hired contractors, ordered materials, and created such a flurry of activity around the Whitechapel building that the neighbors started coming by to ask questions. You're really opening a school? Asked a woman who introduced herself as Mrs. Cooper, a seamstress who worked 14-hour days in a factory nearby. For us? Not our children? For you, Evelyn confirmed. Reading, writing, mathematics, evening classes so you can work during the day. No cost. Why? It was a fair question. Most charity came with strings, with judgment, with requirements to be grateful and reformed. Because you deserve it, Evelyn said simply. Because education shouldn't be a privilege. Mrs. Cooper studied her, this duchess in her practical wool dress and borrowed work gloves, standing in a construction site like she belonged there. You're different than I expected, she said finally. What did you expect? Someone who'd stay uptown. Someone who'd send money but never show up. I'm here, Evelyn said. I'll be here every Tuesday and Thursday evening once we're open, teaching. You? Why not me? I can read. I can teach others to read. That's all that's required. Mrs. Cooper smiled, the first real smile Evelyn had seen from her. I'll tell the other girls. We'll be here. By March, the building was functional. Not perfect. The plaster was still drying in the second classroom and they were using borrowed desks, but functional. They opened on a Tuesday evening with 27 students. By Friday, they had 63. By the following Tuesday, they had to turn people away. Evelyn stood in front of a classroom of women aged 16 to 56, holding a primer, and felt more purposeful than she'd felt in her entire carefully constructed life. Who can read this first sentence? A young woman in the front row, Mary, a laundry worker with chemical burns on her hands, sounded out the word slowly. The cat sat on the mat. Perfect. Now, who can tell me why we use the instead of a? Hands went up. This was what mattered. Not dinner parties, not social connections, not being the perfect decorative duchess. This. Adrian found out about the garden budget reallocation on a Wednesday. Evelyn knew because he showed up at the London house at 10 in the morning, which he never did, carrying the estate ledger. My study. Now. Mrs. Davies shot Evelyn a sympathetic look as she followed Adrian upstairs. He closed the door. Didn't sit. £4,000. I can explain. £4,000 from the estate maintenance budget, redirected without consultation, without approval. I have signing authority. For household expenses, not for dismantling the entire garden budget to fund a school. Evelyn lifted her chin. The gardens will survive 1 year without new roses. The women in Whitechapel won't survive without education. That's not the point. Then what is the point, Adrian? Because from where I'm standing, the point is that I found a way to do something meaningful with money that was being wasted on flowers nobody sees. You undermined estate management. You overstepped your authority. I used the authority you gave me. You manipulated the system. I worked within it. There's a difference. Adrian slammed the ledger on her desk. Do you have any idea what this looks like? The Duchess of Ashford teaching in Whitechapel, personally supervising construction, redirecting estate funds without consultation. It looks like I give a damn about something other than myself. It looks like you're out of control. The words hung in the air. Evelyn felt something cold settle in her stomach. Out of control, because I made a decision, because I took initiative, because I did something without asking your permission first. Because you're acting like you're single instead of married to someone with responsibilities, reputation. Say what you really mean. Evelyn stepped forward. Say that I'm embarrassing you. Say that you want me quiet and obedient and tucked away somewhere I can't make waves. Say that you married me to be a decorative asset, not an actual person with ideas and agency. Adrian's jaw clenched. I never said that. You've said it every day since we met, through every silence, every separate room, every time you've looked at me like I'm a problem to be managed instead of a partner. You're twisting. I'm stating facts. Evelyn's voice shook, but she kept going. You want a ghost, Adrian. A beautiful, silent, invisible ghost who produces an heir and then disappears. Well, I'm not doing it. I'm here. I'm real. I'm making noise and taking up space, and if that's too much for you, then maybe you should have married someone else. Maybe I should have. The words came out harsh, reflexive. Adrian's face changed the moment they left his mouth. Regret, shock, but it was too late. Evelyn felt like she'd been slapped. Well, she said quietly, at least we're being honest now. Evelyn, I didn't mean, yes, you did. She turned away, not wanting him to see her eyes burn. You meant it. You've always meant it. You just finally said it out loud. I'm angry. He made a frustrated sound. You can't just do whatever you want without consequences. Watch me. The board will want answers. They'll want to know why estate funds are being used for what? Charity? Education? Last I checked, those were acceptable aristocratic pursuits. In appropriate venues. By appropriate, you mean invisible. Polite? Safely tucked away where nobody has to actually see poverty or injustice or women who want more than they were born into. Adrian's hands fisted at his sides. You're being deliberately obtuse. I'm being deliberately effective. There's a difference. Evelyn, I'm not shutting it down. I'm not apologizing. And I'm not asking for permission anymore. She met his gaze directly. You gave me the building. You gave me signing authority. You told me to live my own life. So that's what I'm doing. If you don't like it, take it up with yourself. She walked past him, out the door, down the stairs. Where are you going? He called after her. Whitechapel, I have a class to teach. She left him standing in her study, surrounded by the evidence of everything she was building without him. The satisfaction lasted until she was in the carriage, heading east through increasingly rough neighborhoods. Then it hit her, the full weight of what she'd done. She'd basically declared war on her own husband, had taken estate money without real authorization, had dismissed his concerns, had pushed back so hard she'd forced him to say the thing they'd both been dancing around for months. Maybe I should have married someone else. Evelyn pressed her fingers to her eyes, refusing to cry. She'd known. Of course she'd known. Adrian had never wanted her specifically. She'd just been the appropriate candidate. Well-bred, well-educated, with good connections and no scandalous history. Interchangeable with any other suitable young woman. But hearing it said out loud hurt more than she'd expected. The carriage stopped. They'd arrived. Evelyn straightened her spine, checked her reflection in the window, no tear tracks, thank God, and stepped out into the muddy street. The school was blazing with lamplight. Women were already arriving, tired from long work shifts, eager to learn. This mattered. Whether Adrian understood it or not, this mattered. She'd deal with the consequences later. The consequences arrived sooner than expected. Lady Worthington called a meeting of the Ladies' Charitable Society, a group of aristocratic women who organized benefits and dispensed judgment in equal measure. Evelyn had been invited to join when she became Duchess, but had mostly avoided their meetings. Now she received a formal summons. Not an invitation. A summons. She arrived at Lady Worthington's townhouse to find 12 women arranged in a drawing room like a tribunal. Lady Worthington presided from a velvet chair that might as well have been a throne. "Duchess, how kind of you to join us." "Lady Worthington." Evelyn took the only empty seat, positioned directly in front of the group like a defendant. "You asked to see me. We have concerns about your project. The educational initiative. If that's what you're calling it." Lady Worthington's smile was ice. "We've heard disturbing reports that you're personally teaching in Whitechapel, that you've diverted Ashford estate funds without proper oversight, that you're encouraging working women to have ideas above their station. I'm teaching them to read. You're disrupting the social order. The social order was already disrupted. I'm just making it visible." Murmurs around the room. Not all disapproving, some of the younger women looked intrigued. Lady Worthington's eyes narrowed. "Education for the lower classes must be carefully managed. We can't simply let factory workers learn whatever they like. It creates instability, unrealistic expectations. Expectations like being able to read a contract before signing it, being able to write a letter. Basic literacy isn't radical, it's reasonable. For children, perhaps, but grown women deserve the same opportunities as grown men. Or are we saying education is only valuable for half the population?" "We're saying," Lady Worthington said coldly, "that there are proper channels for charitable work, proper methods. You can't simply run wild with estate money and no oversight." "I have oversight. I report to the Ashford Estate Board quarterly." "Does your husband approve of this venture?" There it was, the real question. Every woman in the room leaned forward slightly. Evelyn thought about Adrian's face when he'd said, "Maybe I should have married someone else." Thought about months of silence and separate lives. "My husband," she said carefully, "gave me the building, gave me authority to manage charitable expenditures. If he objects to how I'm using those resources, he can discuss it with me directly. So he doesn't know." "I didn't say that." "But he hasn't publicly supported your work, hasn't attended any of your events. In fact, the Duke of Ashford seems rather distant from your endeavors." Translation: Your husband is embarrassed by you. Evelyn felt heat crawl up her neck, but kept her voice level. "My husband has many responsibilities. He trusts me to manage my own projects." "Trust? How modern." Lady Worthington folded her hands. "Here's what's going to happen, Duchess. You're going to close this Whitechapel school. You're going to make a public statement that you've reconsidered your approach to charity work. And you're going to join proper organizations, like this one, where your efforts can be appropriately guided. And if I refuse, then we'll be forced to bring this matter to the attention of the full Ashford Estate Board. We'll question the financial irregularities. We'll suggest that perhaps the Duchess isn't suited for independent management of charitable funds." Lady Worthington smiled. "I'm sure your husband would hate the scandal." It was a threat, a clear, direct threat. Evelyn looked around the room, at these wealthy, powerful women who'd never worked a day in their lives, who'd never wondered where their next meal was coming from, who thought charity meant throwing money at problems from a safe distance. She thought about Mary, the laundry worker, sounding out her first sentences. Thought about Mrs. Cooper, who'd started bringing her daughters to class. Thought about 63 women who were learning to read, to write, to imagine lives beyond what they'd been born into. No, Evelyn said. Lady Worthington blinked. Excuse me? No, I won't close the school. I won't make a public statement, and I won't submit to your guidance. Evelyn stood. You want to bring this to the estate board? Go ahead. Let's have that conversation publicly. Let's discuss whether teaching women to read is actually scandalous or whether you're just uncomfortable with change. You're making a mistake. Maybe, but it's my mistake to make. Evelyn walked out of the drawing room, down the stairs, into her waiting carriage. Her hands were shaking. She'd just declared war on the most influential woman in their social circle, had essentially dared Lady Worthington to create a public scandal. Adrian was going to kill her, assuming Lady Worthington didn't destroy them both first. Adrian was waiting when she got home, not at Blackmore Hall, at the London house, in her study. We need to talk. Did Lady Worthington call you already? That was fast. She sent a messenger, very detailed account of your meeting. Adrian's voice was dangerously quiet. You refused to close the school. Yes. She's threatening to go to the board. Let her. Evelyn, what did you want me to do, Adrian? Bow and scrape? Shut down everything I've built because she's uncomfortable? I wanted you to be smart, strategic. I was strategic. I called her bluff. It's not a bluff. Adrian stood. Lady Worthington has connections throughout London society. She can make this very ugly. So can I. With what? He stopped. What? New? Young? A woman? Say it. You're vulnerable, Adrian said. You don't have the social capital to fight someone like her. But you do. Silence. Evelyn stepped closer. You could support me, publicly. You could make it clear that the school has Ashford backing, that I'm not some rogue duchess acting independently. I'm your wife, with your full support. Adrian's jaw worked. You're asking me to put the estate's reputation behind this. I'm asking you to choose me. For once, to actually choose me. It's not that simple. It is exactly that simple. Either you support your wife or you don't. Either this marriage is a partnership or it's a prison. Decide. Evelyn, I have 63 students depending on that school staying open. I have teachers I've hired. I have women who are learning to read for the first time in their lives. So yes, I'm asking you to risk your precious reputation. I'm asking you to do something that matters more than appearances. Adrian turned away, shoulders tight. You don't understand what you're asking. Then explain it to me. If I publicly support this, if I make it an Ashford initiative instead of your independent project, everything you do reflects on the estate. Every controversy, every criticism, every time someone disapproves of working women learning to read, it becomes an estate problem. So I have responsibilities. To the board. To the family name. To what? To keeping everything perfectly controlled and safe and unthreatening? To making sure nobody ever rocks the boat? To protecting what matters. I'm asking you to protect me. The words came out louder than she intended. Rawer. Evelyn pressed her fingers to her temples. I'm asking you to believe in what I'm doing enough to defend it. To defend me. But you can't, can you? Because that would require actually seeing me as more than a problem to manage. That's not fair. None of this is fair, but I'm done pretending it doesn't matter. Evelyn grabbed her coat. Lady Worthington is going to the board. Fine, I'll face them myself. You can't. Watch me. Evelyn, if you go in there without proper support, then I'll fail. But at least I'll fail trying instead of giving up because it's too hard. She walked out. This time, Adrian didn't follow. The Ashford Estate Board met quarterly in a room at the family's bank. 12 men in expensive suits who managed the duchy's considerable holdings. Evelyn requested an emergency meeting. They granted it, probably out of curiosity more than anything else. The Duchess had never attended a board meeting. Most duchesses didn't. She walked into the oak-paneled room at precisely 2 o'clock, carrying a folder of documents and wearing her most severe navy dress. 12 pairs of eyes fixed on her. Gentlemen, thank you for seeing me. Lord Ashford, Adrian's uncle, the board chairman, gestured to a chair. Duchess, we understand there's been some confusion regarding estate expenditures. Confusion. Polite way of saying she'd stolen money. Not confusion, Evelyn said. Reallocation. I redirected £4,000 from the garden maintenance budget to fund an educational initiative. I have the paperwork here. She distributed copies of her financial reports. The men leafed through them, frowning. This is highly irregular, one of them, Lord Preston said. The garden budget is allocated years in advance. You can't simply redirect it. I have household signing authority for household expenses, not capital projects. Education is a household priority, or it should be. Lord Ashford cleared his throat. Duchess, we appreciate your enthusiasm, but estate funds require proper oversight. You should have brought this proposal to the board before taking action. Would you have approved it? Silence. That's what I thought. Evelyn leaned forward. Gentlemen, the Ashford estate generates over £200,000 annually. We spend $4,000 on gardens that 6 people see. I'm asking to spend the same amount teaching 63 women to read. Women who work in our factories, our laundries, our shops. Women who contribute to the economy you all benefit from. The optics, Lord Preston began. The optics are that the Ashford family cares about more than profit, that we're investing in our community, that we believe education matters regardless of class or gender. Lady Worthington has raised concerns. Lady Worthington is uncomfortable with change. That's not my problem. It becomes our problem when it affects a state reputation. Evelyn took a breath. This was it. The moment where she either gained ground or lost everything. Then make it an official estate initiative, she said. Make it clear this isn't me acting independently. It's Ashford policy. Put your names behind it. Show London society that this family leads instead of following. The men exchanged glances. Does the Duke support this? Lord Ashford asked. The Duke gave me the building. But does he support making it an official estate initiative? Evelyn thought about Adrian standing in her study, unable to choose her, unable to risk his carefully controlled reputation. She could lie, could say yes, absolutely, he's completely behind this. But these men would verify, would ask Adrian directly. My husband, she said carefully, is cautious. He's concerned about controversy, about risk. She met Lord Ashford's gaze directly. But I'm not asking for my husband's approval. I'm asking for yours. As a board. As men who control considerable resources and could use those resources to actually change lives. This is unprecedented. So was educating aristocratic women 100 years ago. Things change. Either we lead that change or we get left behind. Lord Preston shook his head. The Duchess is passionate, but this is beyond her purview. I move we reject the proposal and require repayment of the redirected funds. Seconded, another board member said. Evelyn's stomach dropped. Lord Ashford looked at her thoughtfully. Before we vote, Duchess, what happens if we reject this? If we demand you close the school? I refuse. You'd defy a board decision? I'd find other funding, private donations, my own money if necessary. The school stays open either way. The only question is whether it has Ashford support or whether I build it in opposition to this family. That sounds like a threat. It's a promise. Evelyn stood. You can have me as an ally or an opponent, but you can't make me disappear. She left before they could vote, walked out of the building into the March rain, and kept walking until she reached the Thames embankment. She'd done it. Had actually threatened the Ashford Estate Board. Had basically declared war on her own family's financial interests. Adrian was definitely going to kill her now. Her hands were shaking so hard she had to grip the railing. She'd been so sure, so confident in that room. But now, standing alone in the rain, she felt the full weight of what she'd done. If the board voted against her, she'd lose everything. The building, the funding, possibly even her allowance. She'd have to start over from nothing. Or she'd have to give up. And giving up meant those 63 women stopped learning. Meant Mary never learned to read a full page. Meant Mrs. Cooper's daughters had no options beyond factory work. No, Evelyn said out loud. No, I won't. She'd find a way. Even if it meant selling her jewelry. Even if it meant taking in paid work herself, Though what work a duchess could do, she had no idea. She'd find a way. Because the alternative, disappearing, being the ghost Adrian wanted, that wasn't living. That was just surviving. And Evelyn was done just surviving. The vote came back 3 days later. A letter delivered to the London house at 8 in the morning. Evelyn opened it with shaking hands. The Ashford Estate Board has reviewed your proposal. By a vote of 7 to 5, we approve the educational initiative as an official estate charitable program, with a budget of £4,000 annually, subject to quarterly review and reporting requirements. Congratulations, Duchess. Make us proud. It was signed by Lord Ashford. Evelyn read it 3 times before she believed it. They'd approved it, actually approved it. The school would stay open, would be funded, would have official Ashford backing. She'd won. She was still staring at the letter when Adrian walked into the study. "You voted against me," she said without looking up. "What?" "The board vote was 7 to 5. You're on the board. You voted against me." She finally met his eyes. "Didn't you?" Adrian's face was carefully blank. The vote was confidential. "You can't even admit it. Evelyn, you couldn't support me publicly. You couldn't defend me to Lady Worthington. You couldn't choose me in that boardroom. After everything, you still can't choose me. It's not that simple. Stop saying that." Evelyn stood. "Stop hiding behind complexity and responsibility and reputation. You had a choice. Support your wife or protect your comfort. And you chose comfort again. I chose stability. You chose cowardice." Adrian's eyes went cold. "Careful. Why? What are you going to do? Leave me? Divorce me? You already did that emotionally on our wedding night. All that's left is the paperwork. That's not fair." "Fair?" Evelyn laughed, sharp and bitter. "Nothing about this has been fair. I've tried, Adrian. I've tried so hard to be what you needed, and it's never enough because you don't actually want a wife. You want... I don't even know what you want anymore. I want..." He stopped. Something cracked in his expression. "I want not to fail again." The words hung between them. Evelyn stared at him. "Catherine." "Yes." "You think I'm going to leave like she did." "I think..." Adrian ran a hand through his hair. "I think if I keep distance, if I don't invest too much, then when you inevitably realize you've made a mistake marrying me, it won't..." He stopped, swallowed. "It won't destroy me. So you destroyed us first. I protected us both. No, you protected yourself and left me to drown alone." Adrian's hands clenched. "I gave you everything, except yourself, except trust, except partnership." Evelyn's voice broke. "I don't want your money or your title or your perfect controlled distance. I want you, the real you, the man who's so terrified of being hurt again that he won't let anyone close. But you won't give me that, will you? You won't take the risk." "I can't." "You mean you won't?" "I mean I don't know how." The honesty in his voice nearly broke her. Evelyn closed her eyes. "Then we're done." "What?" "Not the marriage. I'm not stupid enough to think either of us can walk away from this legally, socially, financially. But us, whatever this was supposed to be, we're done. I'll play the Duchess at public events. I'll smile for the society pages. I'll even give you your heir eventually, since that's what you actually married me for." She opened her eyes. "But I'm done hoping you'll change. Done waiting for you to choose me. You can keep your emotional distance. I'll keep mine." "Evelyn, congratulations, Adrian. You finally got what you wanted. A wife who'll disappear." She walked past him, grabbed her coat. "Where are you going?" "Whitechapel. I have a class to teach." "It's pouring rain." "I know." "Evelyn," she turned at the door. "The board approved my proposal, 7 to 5, which means someone on that board actually believed in what I'm doing. Believed in me." She looked at him directly. "Thank you for proving it wasn't you." Then she left him standing in her study, surrounded by the evidence of everything she'd built without him, and walked out into the rain. The rain soaked through Evelyn's coat before she'd made it 2 blocks. She didn't care. The cold felt cleansing, like it might wash away the last 6 months of hoping Adrian would become someone he wasn't. The carriage driver looked alarmed when she climbed in, dripping wet. "Whitechapel, ma'am? In this weather?" especially in this weather. Because sitting in the London house thinking about Adrian's face, the way he'd admitted he couldn't trust her, couldn't choose her, couldn't risk being hurt again, that would drive her insane. Better to teach. Better to do something that mattered. The school was warm when she arrived, lamplight spilling onto the wet street. Women were already gathering despite the downpour, shaking off their shawls, laughing about the mud. Mary spotted Evelyn first. "Ma'am, you're soaked through." "I'm fine." "You're shivering. Mrs. Cooper, get the Duchess some tea." "I don't need—" But Mrs. Cooper was already pressing a chipped cup into her hands, and someone else was draping a dry shawl around her shoulders. And suddenly Evelyn was surrounded by women who actually cared whether she was cold and wet. Women who saw her. She had to blink back tears. "Right then," she said, voice only slightly unsteady. "Who wants to practice their letters?" The class lasted 2 hours. 2 hours where Evelyn didn't think about Adrian or the board vote or Lady Worthington's threats, where she just taught, patient corrections, encouragement, the simple satisfaction of watching comprehension dawn in someone's eyes. Afterward, Mary lingered while the others filed out into the now gentle rain. "Can I ask you something, ma'am?" "Of course." "Why do you do this?" "Really?" Mary twisted her work-roughened hands. "You're a duchess. You could be at fancy parties every night. Instead, you're here, teaching us. Why?" Evelyn thought about her answer carefully. "Because this is the only place I feel real." Mary nodded slowly. "I understand that." "Do you?" "I work 14 hours in a laundry, stand over boiling water, breathing chemicals, ruining my hands. But 2 nights a week I come here. I learn, I read, and for those 2 hours, I'm not just a laundry girl. I'm someone with a future." She met Evelyn's eyes. "You make that possible. So, thank you." Evelyn's throat tightened. "You're welcome." She rode home in the dark, wrapped in a borrowed shawl, feeling more purposeful than she had in months. The London house was dark when she arrived, except for a single lamp burning in the study. Adrian was still there. Evelyn paused in the doorway. He sat at her desk, still wearing the same clothes from earlier, staring at nothing. "You should go home," she said. He looked up. "This is home. For you." "For me. Not for you." "Evelyn, please don't. I can't do this again tonight. I'm tired, I'm wet, and I used up all my fight earlier." Adrian stood slowly. "I voted for you." Evelyn went still. "What?" "The board meeting. I voted to approve your initiative. I was one of the 7. She stared at him. "You're lying." "I'm not." "Then why did you—" She stopped, replayed the conversation from earlier. "I assumed you voted against me. You never said— You didn't give me a chance to say anything." Adrian's voice was rough. "You looked at me and decided I'd failed you. Again. Because you always do. Not this time." Evelyn felt something crack in her chest. "Why didn't you just tell me?" "Because you were right about everything else. About me being a coward. About choosing comfort over you. About protecting myself instead of us." He stepped closer. "I did vote for you. But that doesn't change the fact that I've been a terrible husband, that I've kept you at a distance because I'm terrified of being hurt, that I've treated you like a threat instead of a partner." "Adrian, let me finish, please." He ran a hand through his hair. "Catherine destroyed me. When she left, when she chose someone else, it confirmed every fear I had about not being enough, about being unlovable. So I built walls, made sure nobody could get close enough to hurt me like that again. And then you married me. And then I married you, beautiful, brilliant, stubborn you. And every day you pushed against those walls, every day you demanded more than I thought I could give. It terrified me." Evelyn's hands clenched. "So you pushed me away." "Yes, and I'm sorry, I'm so sorry." Adrian's voice cracked. "But watching you fight the board today, watching you refuse to back down even when everyone was against you, I realized something." "What?" "You're nothing like Catherine. She left at the first sign of difficulty. You run toward hard things. You don't give up." He stepped closer. "And I've been punishing you for someone else's sins." Evelyn felt tears burning. "You voted for me." "I did. Uncle James tried to change my mind, said I was enabling reckless behavior. I told him my wife wasn't reckless. She was courageous, and that the family would be lucky to have her vision shaping our charitable work. You said that? I did. Didn't help my reputation with the board, but he shrugged. Some things matter more than reputation. Evelyn wanted to believe him, wanted to trust this shift, this moment of honesty, but she'd been disappointed too many times. One vote doesn't fix 6 months of silence, she said quietly. I know. It doesn't make us partners. I know that too. Then what are we doing here, Adrian? Why are you telling me this now? He looked at her for a long moment. Because I don't want to lose you, and I'm terrified I already have. The honesty in his voice nearly undid her. I don't know how to trust you, Evelyn whispered. I don't know how to believe this is real, and not just another disappointment. I know. Adrian's hands flexed like he wanted to reach for her but didn't dare. I'm not asking you to trust me yet. I'm just asking you not to give up on me completely. Let me prove I can change. How? However you need me to. Evelyn closed her eyes. She was so tired. Tired of fighting, of hoping, of being disappointed. But some stubborn part of her wasn't ready to quit either. Start by going home, she said. We both need space to think. Adrian nodded slowly. All right. He walked to the door, paused. Evelyn? Yes? You were magnificent today, at the board meeting. I should have said that earlier. Then he left, and Evelyn stood alone in her study, trying to figure out if she'd just made progress or prolonged the inevitable. The scandal broke 3 weeks later. Evelyn was at the school when Miss Green arrived, white-faced, carrying a newspaper. Ma'am, you need to see this. The headline was splashed across the society page. Duchess's dalliance, Ashford marriage in crisis. Below it, a detailed account of Evelyn's inappropriate relationship with one of the school's donors, a merchant named Thomas Fletcher who'd contributed funds for books. Except Evelyn had met Thomas Fletcher exactly twice, both times in public, both times with witnesses. This is insane, Evelyn said, reading the article with growing horror. None of this is true. I know that, but Miss Green pointed to the byline. The story was attributed to society sources close to the Duchess. Lady Worthington, Evelyn breathed. Almost certainly. The article continued with lurid speculation. How the Duchess spent suspicious amounts of time in Whitechapel. How she'd been seen entering buildings unchaperoned. How the Duke maintained a separate residence, surely a sign of marital discord. Every fact twisted, every innocent action reframed as evidence of infidelity. They're destroying me, Evelyn said numbly. They're trying to. Miss Green's voice was steel. Question is, how do we fight back? Evelyn read the article again. The implications were clear. She was an adulteress. Her work was a cover for inappropriate behavior. Her marriage was a sham. All lies. But mud stuck. Once the accusation was printed, the damage was done. I need to talk to Adrian. She found him at Blackmore Hall in his study, surrounded by newspapers. His face was carved from ice. Did you see? Evelyn started. All of London has seen it. His voice was flat. The morning papers, the evening editions. Everyone is talking about my wife's alleged affair. It's not true. I know. Do you? Evelyn stepped closer. Because you're looking at me like you're not sure. Adrian's jaw clenched. Of course I'm sure. I know you. You'd never... He stopped. I know you. Then why do you look so angry? Because they're attacking you. Because Lady Worthington is trying to destroy everything you've built. Because... He slammed his hand on the desk. Because I should have protected you from this, and I didn't. Evelyn sank into a chair. You couldn't have known. I should have. I know how these people operate. I should have anticipated. Adrian paced. We need to respond. Issue a statement. Maybe sue for libel. That will just keep the story alive longer. Then what? I don't know. Evelyn pressed her fingers to her temples. The students are already gossiping. Half of them will probably stop coming now that I'm supposedly a scandalous adulteress. They know you better than that. Do they? I'm a duchess who showed up in their neighborhood claiming to want to help. This confirms all their suspicions that I'm just a bored aristocrat playing at charity. That's not true. But it's believable. Evelyn looked at him. That's what makes it good slander. It's close enough to reality to stick. Adrian stopped pacing. We'll figure this out. We? Yes, we. You're my wife. They attacked you. They attacked me. We fight this together. It was possibly the first time he'd said we and actually meant it. Evelyn wanted to believe him, but the newspapers on his desk told a different story, one where she was ruined, her work destroyed, her reputation shattered. I need to go back to the school, she said. Face the students. Let them hear the truth from me. That's not safe. If Lady Worthington is spreading rumors, then hiding won't help. I have to show them I'm not ashamed because I haven't done anything wrong. Adrian's expression shifted. Then I'm coming with you. What? You said we're partners. Prove it. If you're facing the students, I'm there too. Evelyn stared at her husband. You've never been to the school? I know. That was a mistake, one of many. He grabbed his coat. Let's go. The students were whispering when Evelyn and Adrian arrived. Conversations died as they entered. 63 pairs of eyes fixed on the Duke and Duchess of Ashford standing together in the doorway. Evelyn felt her courage wobble, but Adrian's hand found the small of her back, a subtle support. Good evening, Evelyn said, voice steadier than she felt. I know you've all seen the newspapers. I want to address it directly. Silence. The allegations are false, completely false. I have never been unfaithful to my husband. My work here is exactly what it appears to be, an educational initiative. Nothing more, nothing less. Then why did they print it? Mrs. Cooper asked. Not hostile, just confused. Because some people are threatened by what we're doing here, by women learning, by change. Evelyn stepped forward. They want to shut us down. They thought attacking my character would be the easiest way. Is it working? Mary's voice was small. That depends on you. If you believe the lies, if you stop coming to class, then yes, they win. Evelyn looked around the room. But if you trust what you've seen with your own eyes, if you believe in what we're building here, then we keep going. Murmurs. Uncertain glances. Then Adrian spoke. I'm the Duke of Ashford, and I want to be clear. My wife has my complete support. This school has my complete support. Anyone spreading rumors about the Duchess is spreading lies. And they'll answer to me personally. The room went silent. Mary stood slowly. I believe you, ma'am. I've been coming here for months. I know what this place is. It's learning, that's all. Me too, Mrs. Cooper said. The papers can say whatever they want. I know the truth. One by one, other women stood, voiced support, chose to believe what they'd experienced over what they'd read. Not all of them. A few left, uncomfortable with the controversy, but most stayed. Evelyn felt tears burning but refused to let them fall. Thank you, all of you. Now, who wants to practice reading comprehension? Class proceeded almost normally. Almost. But Adrian stayed, sat in the back, watched Evelyn teach with an expression she couldn't read. Afterward, walking to the carriage, he said, You're remarkable. I'm terrified. You don't show it. Years of practice. Evelyn climbed into the carriage. Thank you for coming, for speaking up. I should have done it sooner. Should have been supporting you publicly all along. You're here now. Is that enough? Evelyn looked at her husband, this complicated, damaged man who'd hurt her so many times, but was finally, maybe, trying. I don't know yet, she said honestly. Ask me when this is over. But it wasn't over. The newspapers ran follow-up stories. More witnesses came forward with fabricated sightings. Someone claimed to have seen Evelyn and Thomas Fletcher in a compromising position, pure fiction, but printed as fact. The whispers at social events became open stares. Invitations dried up. Even women who'd previously been friendly now avoided her. Evelyn became a pariah. She kept teaching, kept the school running, but the toll was visible, dark circles under her eyes, weight loss, a brittleness that hadn't been there before. Adrian noticed. You need to rest. I need to work. Evelyn, if I stop, they win. If I hide, it confirms the rumors, so I keep going. You're exhausting yourself. I'm surviving. But she wasn't sleeping. Lay awake every night replaying the whispers, the stares, the social death happening in slow motion. One morning she woke to find Adrian sitting in a chair beside her bed. "What are you doing here?" "You were having nightmares, crying in your sleep." Evelyn sat up, suddenly aware she was in her nightgown, hair messy, face probably blotchy. "I'm fine." "You're not fine. You're being destroyed and pretending it doesn't hurt." "What else am I supposed to do?" "Let me help." "You are helping." "Not enough." Adrian leaned forward. "I've been thinking about how to end this, really end it." "There's no ending it. The rumors are out there. They'll fade eventually, but what if we prove them wrong? Publicly? Undeniably?" Evelyn frowned. "How?" "We find out who's behind this, who's feeding information to the papers. We expose them. Show everyone this was a coordinated attack, not truth-telling. We know who's behind it, Lady Worthington. Probably. But we need proof, and we need leverage. Adrian, these are powerful people. We can't just... Yes, we can. I'm a duke. I have resources, connections. I've been too careful for too long, worried about reputation and appearances. But watching them attack you..." His hands clenched. "I'm done being careful." Evelyn studied him. "What are you proposing?" "Let me investigate. Quietly. I'll find out who's feeding stories to the papers, where the false witnesses came from, how deep this goes." His eyes met hers. "And then we burn it all down." It was reckless, dangerous, exactly the kind of thing that could backfire spectacularly. "All right," Evelyn said. "Do it." Adrian hired an investigator, a former police detective who specialized in discreet inquiries. Within a week, he had results. "The stories are coming from Lady Worthington's lady's maid," Adrian reported, spreading papers across the dining table. "She's been paid to witness compromising situations. The maid claims she saw things. The papers print it. Lady Worthington maintains plausible deniability. Can we prove it? We have bank records showing payments from an account linked to Lord Worthington. We have testimony from a reporter who says the maid approached him, not the other way around." Adrian's smile was sharp. "We have them." "What do we do with it?" "We give them a choice. Retract the stories publicly, issue an apology, or we go public with proof of the conspiracy. Show everyone that one of London's most respected families fabricated a scandal to silence a duchess who threatened their social control." Evelyn felt something cold settle in her chest. "That will destroy the Worthingtons." "Yes." "Adrian, they tried to destroy you first. Turnabout is fair play. But the fallout will be significant, messy, possibly affect us too." Adrian looked at her directly. "But I'm willing to risk it, if you are." Evelyn thought about the past month, the whispers, the stares, the students who'd stopped coming because they believed the lies. Thought about Lady Worthington's smug face at that tribunal meeting. "Do it," she said. Adrian sent a letter to Lord Worthington that evening. The response came the next morning, a request for a private meeting. They met at a neutral location, a gentlemen's club where both families had memberships. Lord and Lady Worthington arrived looking strained. Lady Worthington's usual smugness was notably absent. "You wanted to meet," Adrian said coldly. "We're here," Lord Worthington cleared his throat. "Let's not be hasty. This situation has gotten out of hand. You fabricated evidence of adultery. You paid servants to lie. You systematically destroyed my wife's reputation." Adrian's voice was ice. "Out of hand is a generous description." Lady Worthington finally spoke. "The Duchess's behavior was inappropriate. Someone needed to what? Punish her for teaching women to read? For threatening your comfortable worldview? She was disrupting progress. She was disrupting stagnation, and you couldn't tolerate it." Adrian leaned forward. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to issue a public statement. You're going to admit the stories were false. You're going to apologize to the Duchess, and you're going to make a substantial donation to the educational initiative." "Absolutely not." "Or," Adrian continued smoothly, "we publish everything. The payments, the coach testimony, the conspiracy. And we let society decide what to do with a family that fabricates scandals. Lord Worthington's face went red. You're threatening us? I'm offering you a choice. Take it or leave it. Silence. Lady Worthington looked like she'd swallowed glass. If we do this, if we issue the statement, this ends. No further action. If the statement is acceptable, yes. And what do you consider acceptable? Evelyn spoke for the first time. The truth, that I was never unfaithful, that the allegations were false, that my work is legitimate, and that you're sorry for the harm caused. Lady Worthington's eyes narrowed. You're enjoying this. No, I'm protecting what I built. There's a difference. The Worthingtons exchanged glances. We'll need time to draft something, Lord Worthington said finally. You have 24 hours, Adrian replied. After that, we publish. They left the Worthingtons sitting in stunned silence. Outside, Evelyn's hands were shaking. That was necessary, Adrian finished. They tried to destroy you. They don't get to walk away clean. You're different. What? Evelyn looked at her husband. You're different than you were 6 months ago. Harder, more ruthless. I'm protecting my wife. That requires ruthlessness. I didn't think you cared enough to be ruthless. Adrian stopped walking, turned to face her. I care about you more than I know how to say. I'm terrible at showing it. I'm scared of it. But watching them attack you, watching you hurt, his voice cracked. I can't. I won't. Not anymore. Evelyn felt something shift in her chest. Adrian, I know I've failed you. I know one meeting doesn't fix everything, but I'm trying. He stopped. I'm learning how to choose you, even when it's scary. The vulnerability in his voice nearly broke her. Before she could respond, a familiar voice called out, Duchess, a word? They turned to find a reporter, young, ambitious, one of the ones who'd been printing the most vicious stories. No comment, Adrian said sharply. Just one question. Is it true you're blackmailing Lord Worthington into retracting his statements about your wife's affair? Adrian went very still. Where did you hear that? The reporter smiled. I protect my sources. But if the Duke of Ashford is now threatening peers to silence scandal, well, that's quite a story, isn't it? Evelyn's blood ran cold. Someone had told, someone from the club, someone who'd overheard, and now instead of clearing her name, they just created a new scandal, one where Adrian looked like a bully using his power to suppress truth. You've got nothing, Adrian said. I've got enough for a front-page story. The reporter's smile widened. Unless you'd like to make a statement, clarify your position? Get out of my sight. The reporter tipped his hat. Pleasure doing business. Watch for tomorrow's edition. He walked away, already scribbling notes. Adrian turned to Evelyn, face pale. I'm sorry. I didn't think... Someone talked. Someone from the club. I'll find out who... It doesn't matter who, the damage is done. Evelyn felt the world tilting. Tomorrow's papers will say you're threatening the Worthingtons, trying to silence them. It makes us look guilty. We'll issue our own statement. And say what? That we have proof of their conspiracy? They'll just say we fabricated it. It becomes he said, she said, and they have more social capital than we do. Adrian grabbed her hands. We'll figure this out. How? Everything we do makes it worse. Every move we make gets twisted. Evelyn's voice rose. Maybe they're right. Maybe I should have just stayed quiet, stayed decorative, disappeared like you wanted. Don't say that. Why not? It's true. I pushed too hard, challenged too much, and now we're both paying for it. Evelyn, I'm tired, Adrian. I'm so tired of fighting, of being attacked, of watching everything I built get destroyed because I dared to exist loudly. She pulled her hands free and walked away, leaving Adrian standing alone on the street. The next morning's papers were worse than expected. Duke threatens peers ran one headline. Ashford scandal deepens. Blackmail allegations surface. Is the Duchess hiding something? Questioned another. Evelyn read them all, sitting in her study at dawn, feeling the walls close in. They'd lost. Somehow, despite having proof, despite being right, they'd lost. The knock on her door was soft. "Come in." Miss Green entered, carrying yet another newspaper. Her face was grave. "Ma'am, there's one more." She laid it on the desk. This one was different, a society scandal sheet, the kind that printed unverified gossip alongside grain of truth stories. The headline made Evelyn's blood freeze. The Duchess's secret, pregnant and alone? Below it, a story speculating that Evelyn was with child, and that Adrian's recent aggressive behavior was because he doubted the child's paternity. None of it was true. Evelyn wasn't pregnant, but the implication was devastating. If society believed she was carrying another man's baby. "This is over," Evelyn whispered. "We can't come back from this." "Ma'am, they've won. Lady Worthington, the papers, everyone who wanted me gone, they've won." Miss Green knelt beside her chair. "You could leave, take some of the money, go abroad, start over, and abandon the students? Abandon everything? To save yourself." Evelyn looked at the newspapers spread across her desk, at the systematic destruction of her name, her work, her life. She thought about Adrian's face yesterday, about his promise to protect her, about how he'd tried and failed, about how she'd tried and failed. Maybe some battles couldn't be won. The door burst open. Adrian stood there wild-eyed, holding a piece of paper. "Don't give up." "Adrian, I know how it looks. I know it's bad. But I have something." He crossed to her, pressed the paper into her hands. "Read it." It was a sworn affidavit from Lady Worthington's lady's maid, the one who'd been paid to lie. In it, she admitted everything, the payments, the coached testimony. Lady Worthington's explicit instructions to fabricate sightings of infidelity. "How did you get this?" Evelyn breathed. "Paid her more than the Worthingtons did. Promised her protection and a reference when this is over." Adrian's eyes blazed. "We have her. We have proof. Undeniable sworn testimony that this was all fabricated. But the blackmail allegations, oh, true, I did threaten them. I'll admit it publicly if I have to. I'll take that hit." He grabbed her hands. "But we're publishing this. Today. We're showing everyone that you were innocent, that this was a conspiracy. We're ending this." Evelyn stared at the affidavit, at salvation, written in cramped legal script. "If we publish this, the Worthingtons will be ruined." "Yes." "Completely destroyed." "Yes." "Adrian, the fallout? Let it fall." His voice was steel. "They tried to destroy my wife. I'm returning the favor." Evelyn looked up at him, at this man who'd been too careful, too controlled, too afraid to fight, who was now ready to burn down half of London society to protect her. "Do it," she said. Adrian smiled grimly. "Already done. It's running in this afternoon's edition." By evening, the entire story had shifted. The affidavit was front-page news. Lady Worthington's maid had given interviews. Other servants had come forward confirming the conspiracy. The Worthingtons issued a statement denying everything, but it was too late. The damage was done. Society was scandalized, not by Evelyn, but by the family that had fabricated an affair to silence a duchess. Invitations started arriving again, apologies from people who'd believed the rumors, donations to the educational initiative. Evelyn watched it unfold in a daze. "We won," Miss Green said, reading another retraction. "Did we?" "The truth is out. Your name is cleared. The school is saved." "Yes, but..." Evelyn looked at the pile of newspapers. "We destroyed them. Completely." "They tried to destroy you first." "I know, but this feels..." She stopped. "Hollow. Because victory shouldn't feel this empty." That night, Adrian found her in the library. "You're not celebrating." "Should I be? We ruined a family today. They ruined themselves. We just exposed it. That's splitting hairs." Adrian sat beside her. "You're right. It is." He was quiet for a moment. "I don't regret it, though. Protecting you. Fighting for you. Even if it meant being ruthless." "I know." "Do you regret it?" Evelyn thought about the question. About Lady Worthington's face in tomorrow's papers. About the social death they'd inflicted. "No," she said finally. "They tried to destroy something good. They had to be stopped. But I don't like what we had to become to stop them. Adrian nodded slowly. Neither do I. They sat in silence, two people who'd won a battle but lost something in the process. Finally, Adrian spoke. The board wants to meet. They're concerned about the publicity. Of course they are. I told them we'd address it together, as a united front. Evelyn looked at him. Together. Yes, if that's all right with you. It was the first time he'd asked instead of assumed. Yes, Evelyn said. Together. The board meeting was tense. Lord Ashford, looking older than Evelyn remembered, opened with, "This situation has gotten completely out of hand." The situation, Adrian replied, was a coordinated attack on my wife. We defended ourselves. By destroying one of London's oldest families, by exposing their lies. There's a difference. The publicity will fade. The truth won't. Lord Preston leaned forward. The educational initiative has become a lightning rod for controversy. Perhaps it's time to reconsider. No. Evelyn's voice was firm. We're not shutting it down. Not after everything. Duchess, the scandal was fabricated by people threatened by change. Closing the school now would prove they were right to be threatened. She looked around the table. We have 63 students, women who are learning, growing, building futures. I'm not abandoning them because some people are uncomfortable. The reputation of this family will survive, or it won't. But either way, I'm not sacrificing women's education to protect our social standing. Lord Ashford studied her. You've changed, Duchess. When you first came to us, you were quiet, deferential. I was scared. I'm not anymore. And if the board insists? Evelyn felt Adrian's hand find hers under the table. United front. Then I continue the initiative independently, with or without Ashford's support. Silence. Then Lord Ashford smiled, a real smile. I was hoping you'd say that. What? The family needs people who care about more than appearances, who'll fight for what's right even when it's hard. He looked at Adrian. Your wife has spine. More than most of us. I vote we continue supporting her work, officially and publicly. One by one, the other board members nodded. Motion passes, Lord Ashford said. The educational initiative continues as an official Ashford program, with full funding and public support. Evelyn felt tears burn. Thank you. Don't thank us yet. You'll need to weather more scrutiny, more criticism. Society doesn't like change. I know. But if anyone can handle it, I think you can. The meeting adjourned. Outside, Adrian pulled Evelyn aside. You did it. Really did it. We did it. No. This was you, your vision, your fight. He touched her face gently. I'm proud of you. It was the first time he'd said it. Evelyn leaned into his touch, exhausted and triumphant and still slightly terrified. What happens now? Now we go home. Rest. Start rebuilding. Together? Together, Adrian confirmed. They rode back to Blackmore Hall in comfortable silence. Everything felt fragile, like they'd survived a storm, but the damage was still being assessed. The house was dark when they arrived, except for a single lamp burning in the entrance hall. The butler handed Adrian a letter. This arrived by special messenger an hour ago, Your Grace, marked urgent. Adrian opened it, scanned the contents. His face went white. What? Evelyn asked. What is it? He handed her the letter with shaking hands. It was from Thomas Fletcher, the merchant whose fabricated affair with Evelyn had started everything. I'm leaving England tonight. Before I go, you should know, I was paid to participate in the scandal, paid to be seen with you, to create situations that could be photographed and misinterpreted. I thought it was harmless. I was wrong. The person who hired me made it clear that if I talk, they'll destroy me. But you deserve to know, this goes deeper than Lady Worthington. Someone else is behind this. Someone with more power and more to lose. Watch your back, Duchess. You've made enemies in high places. Evelyn read it twice. What does this mean? It means we didn't win. Adrian's voice was hollow. We won a battle, but the war isn't over. Evelyn finished. They stood in the dark entrance hall, holding a letter that changed everything. Somewhere in London, someone powerful was orchestrating their destruction, and they had no idea who. Evelyn read Fletcher's letter a third time, her hand steady even as her mind raced. Someone with more power than Lady Worthington. That's a short list. Adrian moved to the desk, pulled out paper and pen. The Prime Minister, a handful of senior peers, maybe 3 or 4 industrialists with enough influence to orchestrate something this elaborate. Why would any of them care about a duchess teaching women to read? They wouldn't, unless... Adrian stopped writing, looked up at her. Unless it's not about the school at all. Then what? Think about it. The school threatens Lady Worthington's worldview, but who else does it threaten? Who benefits from keeping working women illiterate and exploitable? Evelyn felt cold understanding dawn. Factory owners, mine operators, anyone who profits from cheap, unskilled labor. Exactly. If women can read, they can read contracts, labor laws, safety regulations. They can organize. Adrian's voice was grim. Your school isn't just education, it's potential revolution. That's dramatic. Is it? You're teaching 63 women now. What happens when it's 600, 6,000? When working women across London can read and write and start demanding better wages, safer conditions, actual rights? Evelyn sank into a chair. I never thought about it that way. I just wanted to help. I know, but someone else saw the bigger picture, saw the threat, and decided to neutralize it by destroying you. So what do we do? Adrian looked at her for a long moment. We find out who, and we make them regret it. They started with the obvious suspects. Lord Pemberton owned half the textile mills in Manchester. Sir Charles Whitmore controlled shipping interests that employed thousands of dock workers. Marcus Rothwell had coal mines across Wales. All 3 had been vocal opponents of labor reform. All 3 had deep pockets and deeper connections. We need proof, Evelyn said, studying the list Adrian had compiled. Not speculation, actual evidence linking one of them to Fletcher's payment. The investigator can trace money, but these men are careful. They won't have paid Fletcher directly. Then we need Fletcher himself. He's leaving England tonight. If we can reach him before he goes... Adrian was already grabbing his coat. Where would he sail from? Southampton. It's the only port with departures to New York tonight. They made it to Southampton with an hour to spare. The docks were chaos, cargo being loaded, passengers boarding, vendors hawking last-minute supplies. Finding one merchant in this crowd should have been impossible. But Evelyn spotted him near the gangplank of a passenger steamer carrying a single trunk. Mr. Fletcher! He turned, saw them, and went pale. Duchess, I said everything I could in the letter. We need more than a letter. We need a name. I can't. Fletcher glanced around nervously. They'll kill me if I talk. They'll kill you anyway if they think you might talk, Adrian said flatly. At least if you help us, we can offer protection. Protection from men like these? You can't. Evelyn stepped closer, voice low. Mr. Fletcher, Thomas, please. I know you were paid. I know you thought it was harmless. But this isn't about me anymore. Someone is trying to stop women from learning to read, from having futures. Are you really willing to protect that? Fletcher's face twisted. You don't understand. These aren't men you cross and walk away from. Who? He was silent for a long moment, then, Sir Charles Whitmore. He approached me 6 months ago, said he'd heard about your school, said it was creating problems, giving workers ideas. He wanted it shut down quietly. When I refused to help, he threatened my shipping contracts, my business, my family. So you agreed. I agreed to be seen with you a few times, create rumors. I didn't know they'd fabricate an entire affair. I didn't know... He stopped. I'm not a good man, Duchess, but I'm not evil either. I just wanted to survive. Evelyn felt something twist in her chest. Do you have proof? Documents? Correspondence? He paid through intermediaries, but... Fletcher hesitated. He made one mistake. At a meeting, he mentioned specifics. Names of women enrolled in your school, details about your curriculum. Things he couldn't have known unless he was actively monitoring you. That's not proof. No, but I know where he keeps his files, his office in the city, third floor, corner room. He's meticulous, writes everything down. If there's evidence, it's there. Adrian's eyes gleamed. Thank you. I can't testify. If I go public, you won't have to. Just get on your ship. Stay gone for a while. We'll handle the rest. Fletcher nodded, looking relieved and ashamed in equal measure. I am sorry, truly. I know, Evelyn said, and meant it. They watched him bored, then turned back toward the carriage. We're breaking into Whitmore's office, Adrian said. It wasn't a question. Absolutely. It's illegal. So is conspiracy to defame a duchess. Adrian smiled, sharp and dangerous. I knew I married you for a reason. Breaking into Sir Charles Whitmore's office turned out to be surprisingly easy. Adrian bribed the night guard. They walked in through the front door at 2 a.m. like they owned the place. The building was empty, echoing with their footsteps. Whitmore's office was exactly where Fletcher said. Third floor, corner room, locked with a deadbolt that Adrian picked in under a minute. Where did you learn to do that? Evelyn whispered. Misspent youth. Long story. He pushed open the door. Start looking. They searched by lamplight, careful not to disturb anything too obviously. File cabinets, desk drawers, hidden compartments behind paintings. Nothing. Maybe Fletcher was wrong, Evelyn said after 20 minutes. Maybe there's no... Wait! Adrian was at the bookshelf, running his hands along the spines. This one doesn't pull out. He pushed instead. Something clicked. The entire shelf swung inward, revealing a small safe. Can you open it? No, this is beyond my skills. Adrian examined it. We'd need a professional, or... He grabbed a letter opener from the desk and wedged it into the door seam. What are you doing? Something stupid. He threw his weight against the opener. The safe door bent. Not much, but enough. Again, Evelyn said, joining him. Together, they pried at the door. Metal groaned. The lock mechanism strained. Finally, with a crack that sounded deafening in the quiet office, the safe popped open. Inside, ledgers, correspondence, files, and a folder labeled Educational Initiative Containment. Evelyn grabbed it with shaking hands. Inside were detailed reports, surveillance logs documenting her movements, lists of students enrolled in the school, financial projections showing potential labor cost increases if literacy spread among working women, and letters, dozens of them, between Whitmore and Lady Worthington coordinating the scandal, planning each revelation, coaching witnesses. This is it, Evelyn breathed. This is everything. Adrian was reading over her shoulder. He's been watching you for months, since before the school even opened. He saw it as a threat from the beginning. Not just a threat, an existential crisis. Look, Adrian pointed to a financial projection. He calculates that if even 10% of his female workers become literate, labor costs could increase by 30%. They'd demand contracts, fair wages, safe conditions. So he decided to destroy me instead. He tried. We're going to make sure he fails. They took the entire folder, relocked the safe as best they could, slipped out of the building before the guard's next round. By sunrise, they were back at Blackmore Hall, with enough evidence to ruin Sir Charles Whitmore completely. We published this, Evelyn said, spreading the documents across the dining table. Every letter, every surveillance log, show everyone exactly what he did. That'll destroy him, his reputation, his business interests, probably his marriage. Good. Adrian raised an eyebrow. You've developed a ruthless streak. I learned from watching you. Evelyn met his gaze. He tried to destroy me for teaching women to read. I'm supposed to feel sorry for him? No, just making sure you're certain. Once we publish this, there's no taking it back. I'm certain. Adrian nodded slowly. Then we need to be smart about it. If we just hand this to newspapers, Whitmore will claim the documents are forged. We need corroboration, witnesses, a narrative that's undeniable. Fletcher won't testify. We don't need Fletcher. We need... Adrian stopped. The students. What? Think about it. Whitmore's projections are based on literacy rates. On what happens when working women can read? What if we prove his fears are justified? What if we show that your students aren't just learning, they're already using that education to demand better treatment? Evelyn felt understanding dawn. We give them the tools to speak for themselves. Exactly. We publish Whitmore's conspiracy alongside testimonials from the women he was trying to keep ignorant. Show everyone that this wasn't about morality or scandal. It was about power and profit. Evelyn stopped. That's brilliant. I have my moments. Within 2 days, they had everything ready. 27 of Evelyn's students had agreed to give statements. Women who'd learned to read discovered they were being cheated on wages and started demanding fair payment. Women who'd read safety regulations and filed complaints about dangerous factory conditions. Women who'd used their new literacy to better their lives in small but significant ways. The package went to 3 newspapers simultaneously: the documents proving Whitmore's conspiracy, the student testimonials, and a joint statement from the Duke and Duchess of Ashford condemning the attack on working women's education. It ran on a Friday morning. By Friday afternoon, Sir Charles Whitmore was in hiding. The public reaction was volcanic. Not just society gossip this time, actual outrage. Working-class women organizing protests, factory workers demanding investigations into their employers, MPs calling for inquiries into labor exploitation. The story had touched something deeper than scandal. It had exposed the machinery keeping people powerless, and people were furious. Evelyn watched it unfold from the London house, feeling surreal. "We did this," she said, reading another article about factory workers striking for fair wages. "You did this," Adrian corrected. "You started teaching, started showing women they could be more than what they were born into. This is just the consequence of that choice." "It's bigger than I ever imagined." That's how change works. Small actions, big ripples. Miss Green arrived that afternoon with news. "Ma'am, we've had 53 new enrollment requests, and donations—" She paused, checking her notes. £12,000 in 3 days. People want to fund more schools, across London, across England. Evelyn felt dizzy. £12,000? And climbing. The story resonated. People want to help. "We can't accept that much money. We don't have the infrastructure." "Then we build it." Adrian's voice was firm. "You wanted to teach 63 women. Now you can teach 600, 6,000. This is what winning looks like, Evelyn. Messy and overwhelming and terrifying, but winning." She looked at her husband. "I can't do this alone." "Good thing you're not alone anymore." He meant it. Evelyn could see it in his eyes. The commitment, the partnership, the choice to be present instead of distant. "We'll need help," she said. "Staff, teachers, administrators. We'll hire them. Space, multiple locations, a real organization, not just one school. We'll create it. Adrian, this is going to consume everything: time, money, energy. Are you sure?" He took her hands. "I'm sure. For the first time in a long time, I'm completely sure." The Ashford Educational Foundation launched 6 weeks later. 5 schools across London, 20 teachers, 300 students enrolled within the first month. Evelyn was exhausted, exhilarated, and absolutely terrified she'd collapse under the weight of it all. But she didn't collapse. She hired Miss Green as the foundation's managing director, brought in experienced educators to develop curriculum, created systems for enrollment, funding, reporting. Adrian handled the financial side: budgets, investments, donor relations. The estate board, seeing the positive publicity, voted to increase funding. Even Lord Ashford got involved, using his political connections to push for literacy programs in other cities. It was working. Actually, working. 3 months after the Whitmore scandal broke, Evelyn stood in the original Whitechapel school watching Mary, the laundry worker who'd struggled through her first sentences, teach a class of new students. "Sound it out," Mary was saying. "Take your time. There's no rush." A young girl, maybe 16, hands stained with factory dye, slowly read. "The girl can read, the girl can write, the girl can learn." Mary smiled. "Perfect, see? You can do it." Evelyn felt tears burn. This was what mattered. Not society approval or estate politics or even Adrian's slow, stumbling journey toward actually being her partner. This moment, this girl, this possibility. Someone touched her elbow. She turned to find Adrian standing beside her, watching the class with an expression she'd never seen before. "What?" she asked. I'm proud of you. I know I've said it before, but he stopped. I'm proud and humbled and slightly terrified of you. Terrified? You've changed the world in 6 months. That's terrifying. Evelyn laughed softly. I taught some women to read. You did more than that. You challenged power, survived attacks, fought back, built something that matters. He looked at her directly. You're extraordinary. I'm stubborn. That too. They stood together watching Mary teach, and Evelyn felt something settle in her chest. Not peace exactly. There was too much work still to do for peace. But purpose. Direction. A sense that maybe, finally, she was exactly where she was supposed to be. The formal reconciliation happened quietly. No grand gestures, no dramatic declarations, just Adrian showing up. Every day. Consistently. He started taking breakfast with her, actually asking about her work instead of just nodding vaguely, attending foundation events, speaking publicly about the importance of women's education. Small things, but sustained. One evening, 3 months after the Whitmore scandal, Evelyn found him in the library at Blackmore Hall reading student testimonials. What are you doing? Research. He held up a letter. This woman learned to read and discovered her employer was underpaying her by half. She filed a complaint and won back wages. I know. I helped her draft the complaint. Adrian shook his head. That's real power. Not titles or money or social position. Actual ability to change your circumstances. That's what education does. I'm beginning to understand that. Evelyn sat beside him. You've changed. So have you. I got louder. You got... She paused. Present. I'm trying. It's harder than I expected. Letting people close. Trusting that they won't... He stopped. Leave? Yes. Adrian, I'm not Catherine. I know. Logically, I know. But there's this part of me that's still... He made a frustrated gesture, waiting for the other shoe to drop. For you to realize you've made a mistake. What if I don't? Then I'm the luckiest man alive, and also completely undeserving. Evelyn took his hand. You're not undeserving. You're just scared. There's a difference. Is there? Yes. Scared means you care enough to worry about losing something. That's not weakness. That's... She searched for the right word. Investment. Adrian's thumb traced circles on her palm. I'm invested. Terrifyingly invested. Good. Because I need you. This work, it's too big for one person, and I'm tired of doing it alone. You're not alone. Not anymore. He leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. The kiss was gentle, tentative. Nothing like their wedding night or the handful of awkward, obligatory encounters since. This was different. This was a choice. When they pulled apart, Adrian's eyes were bright. Was that all right? He asked. Yes? May I do it again? Evelyn smiled. You may. This time was deeper, more certain, a promise made physical. Afterward, sitting together in the firelight, Evelyn said, We should talk about the practical obligations, the heir you wanted. Adrian went very still. Evelyn, no, it's fine. It's part of the arrangement. I want it to be different than what we originally discussed. Not clinical, not scheduled. If we're going to... She stopped, suddenly shy. I want it to mean something. It will. I promise it will. No separate rooms after? No separate rooms, no separate anything. Adrian pulled her closer. I'm done with distance. If you'll have me, I want... He stopped. I want to actually be married. Really married. That's what I want too. Then we're agreed. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Finally, Evelyn said, We should go to bed. Adrian's eyebrows rose. To sleep, she clarified quickly. Just together. In the same room. I'd like that. They went upstairs hand in hand, and for the first time since their wedding, Evelyn didn't sleep alone. The board meeting 4 months later was different than the first one. Evelyn walked in beside Adrian, their fingers brushing, a subtle but deliberate show of unity. Lord Ashford called the meeting to order. We're here to review the Foundation's progress and discuss expansion proposals. Evelyn stood, presented her report. 5 schools now, 400 students, a waiting list of over 600 women. The demand is overwhelming, she said. We need more locations, more teachers, more funding. Lord Preston, who'd voted against her initially, spoke up. The numbers are impressive, but can this scale? Are we talking 10 schools, 20, 50 eventually, across England, maybe beyond? Murmurs around the table. That's an enormous undertaking, someone said. It is, but the need is there. And the impact? Evelyn distributed copies of their latest assessment. Literacy rates among our students are 97% after 6 months. Employment rates have increased. Wages have improved. We're not just teaching reading, we're changing lives. At significant cost. At necessary cost. Adrian's voice was firm. The estate generates enough income to support this work and maintain our standard of living. It's a question of priorities. And you believe this should be our priority? I believe my wife has identified a genuine need and created an effective solution. Yes, I believe we should support it. Lord Ashford looked around the table. All in favor of doubling the Foundation's budget and approving expansion to 10 new schools? Every hand went up, and every single one. Evelyn felt something tight in her chest loosen. Motion passes, Lord Ashford said. Duchess, you have the board's full support. Make us proud. Outside the meeting, Lord Ashford pulled her aside. You've done well, better than well. You've made this family relevant again, not just rich and titled, actually important. Thank you. Don't thank me. You did the work. You took the risks. He smiled. Though I will say, it's nice to see Adrian happy, really happy, first time in years. He's trying. He's succeeding because of you. Evelyn watched Adrian talking with other board members, animated and engaged in a way she'd never seen before. We're succeeding together, she said. The public ceremony happened in June. The Foundation was opening its 10th school, a converted warehouse in East London that could accommodate 200 students. The crowd was massive. Working women, their families, donors, politicians, journalists. Everyone wanted to see the Duchess, who challenged the establishment and won. Evelyn stood on a makeshift stage, looking out at hundreds of faces, and felt terror and exhilaration in equal measure. Adrian touched her elbow. You ready? No, but I'm doing it anyway. She stepped to the podium. 6 months ago, I taught my first class in a leaky building in Whitechapel. We had 27 students and borrowed desks. I was terrified I'd fail, that nobody would come, that I was being naive thinking education could change anything. Laughter from the crowd. I was wrong. Not about being terrified. I'm still terrified most days. But about education not changing anything. She gestured to the new building behind her. This is our 10th school. We have 400 students, women who are reading contracts, writing letters, demanding better treatment. Women who are proving that literacy isn't a privilege, it's a right. Applause. This didn't happen because of me. It happened because of teachers who believed in this work, donors who funded it, students who showed up despite exhaustion, despite skepticism, despite people telling them they didn't deserve education. Her voice strengthened. It happened because enough people decided that the old way, keeping women ignorant and powerless, wasn't acceptable anymore. More applause, louder now. We're not done. We won't be done until every woman who wants to learn has that opportunity. Until literacy isn't unusual, it's expected. Until education is a foundation, not a luxury. Evelyn looked directly at the women in the crowd. Thank you for trusting us. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for proving that when women are given opportunities, we don't just take them. We transform them into something bigger than anyone imagined. The crowd erupted. Evelyn stepped back, overwhelmed. Adrian was there, steady. Breathe. I can't believe this is real. Believe it. You built this. Mary appeared beside them, grinning. Ma'am, the students want to show you something. She led them inside the new building. The main classroom was filled with women, students from all 10 schools gathered for the opening. On the wall they'd hung a banner, hand-painted letters, slightly uneven, but readable. She taught us to read. We'll teach the world. Evelyn felt tears spill over. We wanted to thank you, Mary said. All of us. You gave us futures. Now we're going to pass it on. You don't need to thank me. We know. We're doing it anyway. The women applauded. Not polite society applause. Real appreciation from people whose lives had genuinely changed. Evelyn looked at Adrian, who was also tearing up. We did this, she whispered. You did this, he corrected. I just finally got smart enough to help. That night, back at Blackmore Hall, they sat in the library with brandy and comfortable silence. I have something for you, Adrian said eventually. He handed her a small box. Inside was a key. What's this? The master key to Blackmore Hall. I'm changing the estate protocols. You're not a guest here anymore. You're the Duchess. This is your home. Our home. No more separate quarters or asking permission to change things. He took her hand. I should have done this on our wedding day. I'm sorry it took so long. Evelyn closed her fingers around the key. Thank you. For what? For choosing me. Finally. Completely. I'm the one who should be thanking you for not giving up on me, for fighting even when I made it impossible, for... His voice cracked. For being exactly who you are, even when I wanted you to be someone smaller. I couldn't be smaller if I tried. It's not in my nature. Thank heaven for that. They sat together, watching the fire, and Evelyn felt something she hadn't felt in months. Hope. Not the desperate, clinging hope of their early marriage, but something steadier, stronger. The hope that came from actually building something together instead of just surviving side by side. Adrian? Yes? I think I might be falling in love with you. He went very still. Might be? I'm terrified to commit fully, in case I disappoint you again. Yes. Adrian set down his glass and turned to face her fully. I can't promise I won't disappoint you. I'm still learning how to be present, how to trust, how to be the partner you deserve, but I can promise I'll keep trying every day for the rest of our lives. That's all I need. Is it enough? Evelyn thought about the question, about 6 months of fighting and failing and finally, slowly finding their way. Ask me in a year, she said, when we've had more practice. Adrian smiled. I can live with that. He kissed her, deep and certain and full of promise. And for the first time since their wedding, Evelyn kissed him back without reservation, without fear, just hope and heat and the beginning of something real. Later, lying in bed together, really together, not separate rooms or separate lives, Evelyn said, we survived. More than survived. We're actually happy. Are we? Adrian pulled her closer. I am. Terrified and overwhelmed and completely out of my depth with this foundation work. But happy. Are you? Evelyn thought about the schools, the students, the life she'd built from nothing. Thought about Adrian's hand in hers at the board meeting, his speech at the opening, the way he looked at her now like she was real, not just decorative. Yes, she said. I think I am. Good, because I'm not letting you go, not ever again. Promise? I promise. Outside, rain started falling, gentle, cleansing, washing away the last remnants of the scandal and the hurt and the distance. Inside, the Duke and Duchess of Ashford held each other and slept peacefully for the first time in their marriage. Not perfect, but real, and that was enough. The morning sickness started in September. Evelyn barely made it to the basin before her stomach rebelled. Adrian appeared in the doorway, hair disheveled from sleep, concern etched across his face. Again? Third time this week. Evelyn rinsed her mouth, hands shaking. I think we need to call the doctor. Dr. Matthews arrived that afternoon, conducted his examination, and confirmed what Evelyn had already suspected. Congratulations, Your Grace. You're approximately 8 weeks along. The words hung in the air. Evelyn looked at Adrian, whose expression had gone carefully blank, the same face he'd worn on their wedding night when discussing the primary obligation. Her stomach twisted, and not from morning sickness. Thank you, doctor, she managed. When should we expect? Late April, I'd estimate. I'll want to see you monthly, more frequently as you progress. Dr. Matthews packed his bag. Get rest, avoid stress, the usual precautions. After he left, silence filled the bedroom. Finally, Adrian spoke. Are you happy about this? Evelyn sank onto the bed. I don't know. Are you? I asked first. Adrian, I'm terrified, he said quietly. That's the honest answer. Terrified I'll be a terrible father. Terrified of what this means. Terrified that... He stopped. That I'll disappear now? Like you originally wanted? His face crumpled. That was cruel of me. What I said on our wedding night, if I could take it back. You can't, but we're different now, aren't we? Yes. At least, I hope we are. Adrian sat beside her. I want this child. I want our family. I'm just scared. Constantly. Evelyn took his hand. Me too. But we'll figure it out, together. Together, he echoed, like he was testing the word. She leaned against him, feeling the weight of everything. The schools, the scandal aftermath, and now a baby growing inside her that would change everything again. We should tell the board, Adrian said. They'll want to know, plan for succession, all that. Not yet. Let's have this to ourselves for a while, before it becomes an estate matter. All right, a few weeks, then we tell everyone. But the secret lasted less than a week. Lady Pemberton, still friendly despite everything, noticed Evelyn refusing wine at a dinner party. Darling, are you feeling well? You look positively glowing, but you haven't touched your glass. Just tired. The foundation work is demanding. Lady Pemberton's eyes narrowed knowingly. Of course, how silly of me. The next morning, the whispers started. By afternoon, congratulations were arriving. How does everyone know? Evelyn demanded, reading the fifth note. Lady Pemberton has a mouth like a town crier, Adrian said grimly. I'll speak to her. Don't. It's done. Might as well make it official. They announced formally the following week. The response was overwhelming. Society matrons offering advice. The board discussing nursery arrangements. Complete strangers sending baby clothes. Evelyn felt smothered. I can't breathe, she told Miss Green during a foundation meeting. Everyone has opinions about what I should do, how I should rest, what this means for my work. What does it mean for your work? Miss Green asked carefully. Nothing. I'm pregnant, not incapacitated. But eventually I'll need to slow down, obviously, but that's months away. Right now, I'm fine, better than fine. We have expansion plans, new curriculum to develop. Ma'am, Miss Green's voice was gentle. You collapsed in the middle of a class last week. You're exhausted. I'm always exhausted. This is different, and you know it. Evelyn pressed her fingers to her temples. I can't stop. If I stop, everything I've built falls apart, or it proves you've built something strong enough to stand without you constantly holding it up. The words hit harder than expected. That night, Evelyn found Adrian in his study going through estate accounts. I need to talk to you about something. He set down his pen immediately. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong, but Miss Green made a point today. About the foundation. About me trying to do everything myself. You do try to do everything yourself. I know, but what if... She stopped. What if I step back? Not completely, but delegate more. Let other people lead while I focus on... She gestured at her still flat stomach. Adrian looked shocked. You'd actually do that? Give up control? Not give up. Share. There's a difference. Is there? He smiled slightly. You're terrified of letting go. I'm terrified of failing, of this baby, of being a mother, of losing myself to motherhood the way women are expected to. Evelyn's voice cracked. What if I disappear after all? Not because you want me to, but because that's what happens. The Duchess becomes just a mother and everything I built doesn't matter anymore. Adrian stood, crossed to her, pulled her into his arms. That won't happen. You can't know that. I can. Because you're not the kind of person who disappears. You're too loud, too stubborn, too fundamentally yourself to ever be just one thing. He pulled back to look at her. You'll be a mother, and a duchess, and the woman who changed women's education in England. All of it, simultaneously. messily. You make it sound possible. It is possible. Not easy, but possible. Evelyn leaned into him, letting herself be held. I'm scared. I know, so am I, but we're scared together. That's progress. She laughed wetly. The bar is very low for this marriage. We set it low, gives us room to exceed expectations. They stood together in the quiet study, and Evelyn felt something settle. Not peace exactly, she was too anxious for peace, but acceptance. This was happening. She was pregnant. The foundation would continue with or without her constant involvement. Life was changing again. And maybe, just maybe, she could handle it. The real test came 3 months later. Evelyn was visibly pregnant now, not hugely, but enough that she couldn't hide it. Society expected her to retreat, to rest, to focus entirely on her impending motherhood. Instead, she showed up at Parliament. A bill was being debated, the Education Access Act, which would provide public funding for literacy programs like the ones the foundation ran. Evelyn had been invited to speak, not testify officially, women couldn't do that, but to address a committee informally as a concerned philanthropist. Adrian had tried to talk her out of it. You're 6 months pregnant, standing for hours in a stuffy committee room. I'll sit. Evelyn, this bill determines whether programs like ours get government support or stay dependent on private funding. I have to be there. Send Miss Green, send someone else. They invited me. They want the Duchess of Ashford, not a representative. I'm going. So she went, with Adrian beside her, looking nervous and protective. The committee room was packed. MPs, journalists, advocates on both sides of the issue. Evelyn took her seat at the witness table, acutely aware of every eye on her swollen belly. Lord Harrington, who was chairing the committee, spoke first. Duchess, thank you for joining us. We understand you've been quite involved in women's literacy initiatives. I have, yes. Some would say too involved for a woman in your condition. He gestured vaguely at her stomach. Murmurs around the room. Evelyn felt anger spark. My condition is pregnancy, Lord Harrington. Not illness, not incapacity. I'm perfectly capable of discussing education policy while growing a human. More murmurs, some amused. Of course, but surely you understand the concerns that your personal circumstances might affect your judgment about what's best for these programs. My circumstances give me perspective. I know what it's like to build something from nothing, to fight for resources and recognition, to prove that women's education isn't charity, it's investment. She leaned forward. The foundation runs 15 schools now. We've taught over 800 women to read. Employment rates among our graduates are 94%. Wage increases average 30%. These aren't abstract benefits, they're measurable improvements in people's lives. At significant cost to taxpayers, if this bill passes. At a fraction of what we spend on other programs that benefit far fewer people. Evelyn pulled out prepared figures. The proposed funding is £12,000 annually. We currently spend 5 times that on maintaining unused royal residences. A few MPs shifted uncomfortably. Lord Harrington frowned. The Duchess makes an interesting point. However, some worry that public funding for women's literacy will create, shall we say, unrealistic expectations among the working class. Unrealistic expectations like fair wages, safe working conditions, the ability to read a contract before signing it? Evelyn's voice sharpened. If those are unrealistic, then we need to examine what system we're protecting. The natural order is changing, with or without this bill. Women are learning to read. They're demanding better treatment. The only question is whether the government supports that progress or fights it. She looked around the room, and whether history remembers you as leaders who helped or obstacles who hindered. Silence. Then Lord Markham, an older MP who'd been quiet until now, spoke up. I've reviewed the Foundation's work. The results are impressive. My question is about sustainability. Can these programs continue without the Duchess's direct involvement? Yes. We've built systems, hired professionals, created curriculum that doesn't depend on any single person. Evelyn felt the baby kick, sharp reminder of why this mattered. I won't always be able to lead daily operations, but the work will continue because it's bigger than me. It's about creating permanent change, not temporary charity. And your child? Lord Markham's voice was gentle. How do you plan to balance motherhood with this work? It was the question everyone wanted to ask, but few dared. Evelyn met his gaze directly. Imperfectly. I'll make mistakes. I'll be exhausted. I'll probably fail at something, motherhood or the foundation or Duchess duties on any given day, but I refuse to choose. I refuse to accept that having a child means abandoning everything else that matters to me. That's quite modern thinking. That's human thinking. Men don't have to choose between fatherhood and meaningful work. Why should women? The room erupted, some in agreement, some in protest. Lord Harrington banged his gavel. Order. Duchess, thank you for your perspective. We'll take it under advisement. Will you pass the bill? That remains to be seen. Then let me be clear. If this bill fails, if the government refuses to support women's education, the foundation will continue anyway. We'll find private funding. We'll expand despite opposition, because this work is too important to abandon just because it's inconvenient or threatens the status quo. Evelyn stood, awkwardly, heavily pregnant but determined. You can lead this change or be dragged along by it. Your choice. She walked out before they could respond, Adrian at her side. Outside, he said, that was too much? Magnificent. Completely terrifying, probably politically disastrous, but magnificent. Evelyn leaned against the wall, suddenly exhausted. I might have just destroyed our chances of getting government funding. Or you might have shamed them into supporting it. Hard to say. I couldn't help myself. They were so condescending, dismissive, convinced that pregnancy makes you fragile. All of that. Adrian touched her face gently. You showed them exactly how wrong they were. Come on, let's get you home before you collapse. I'm not going to collapse. She collapsed in the carriage 10 minutes later. Not dramatically, just a sudden wave of exhaustion so complete she couldn't keep her eyes open. Adrian caught her, held her, murmured reassurances. I've got you. I've got you. I overdid it. You did, but it was worth it. Evelyn wasn't sure she agreed, but she was too tired to argue. The bill passed 3 weeks later. By a narrow margin, just 4 votes, but it passed. The Education Access Act became law, providing government funding for literacy programs across England. Evelyn got the news while on bed rest. Dr. Matthews had insisted after the collapse, and for once she'd listened. Adrian brought the newspaper to her room. We won. We did? Read it yourself. The headline, Parliament approves education funding. Duchess's testimony sways vote. Evelyn read the article twice, tears streaming down her face. Why are you crying? Adrian sat beside her. This is good news. I know, I'm just... She gestured helplessly. Hormones and relief and exhaustion, and it worked. It actually worked. You worked. You showed up when you could barely stand and made them listen. I was terrified I'd ruined everything. You almost did. Several MPs were very upset about being lectured by a pregnant duchess. Adrian smiled. But the younger ones loved it, said it was about time someone challenged the old guard. We're going to change things. Really change things. You already have. Evelyn looked at her husband. This man who'd started as a stranger, become an adversary, and slowly, painfully, transformed into a partner. Thank you, she said. For what? For not asking me to disappear, for letting me be loud and difficult and completely unreasonable. I never let you do anything. You just did it despite me. Still, you could have made it harder. You could have... She stopped. You chose me. Eventually. That matters. Adrian took her hand. I chose you. Imperfect, stubborn, impossible you, and I'd choose you again, every time. The baby kicked hard, like punctuating the statement. Evelyn laughed. I think someone agrees with you. Smart baby. Our baby. Our baby, Adrian repeated, voice full of wonder. They sat together in the afternoon light, and Evelyn felt something she'd never expected to feel in this marriage. Complete. Not perfect. Never perfect. But complete. The baby came in late April during a thunderstorm. Labor was brutal. 18 hours of pain that made Evelyn reconsider every life choice that had led to this moment. I can't do this, she gasped during a particularly bad contraction. You can. You are. Adrian was there, holding her hand, looking nearly as terrified as she felt. Why did we do this? Love? Obligation? Optimism? Stupidity. Definitely stupidity. The midwife laughed. Almost there, Your Grace. One more push. Evelyn pushed with everything she had, and suddenly, crying, a baby crying. It's a girl, the midwife announced. A girl. Evelyn collapsed back against the pillows, exhausted and exhilarated. They placed the baby on her chest, tiny, red-faced, screaming her displeasure at the world. She's got your lungs, Adrian said, voice thick with emotion. She's perfect. She's loud. Like her mother. Evelyn looked down at her daughter, and felt something crack open in her chest, not breaking, expanding. What should we name her? Adrian asked. They'd discussed names for months but never decided. Now, looking at this tiny, furious creature, Evelyn knew. Catherine. Adrian went very still. What? Catherine, after... She stopped. After the woman who taught you what you didn't want, who made you careful and distant and terrified of being hurt. I want to reclaim that name, make it mean something different. Evelyn, our daughter won't be the woman who left you. She'll be the one who proves love doesn't always end in pain, that trust is possible, that, her voice cracked, that sometimes people stay. Adrian's eyes were wet. You want to name our daughter after my ex-lover? I want to name our daughter after a second chance, after transformation, after... Evelyn looked at the baby. After everything we survived to get here. Catherine, Adrian said softly, testing it. The baby stopped crying, like she recognized her name. Catherine Evelyn Blackmore, Evelyn said. Future Duchess, future pain in everyone's neck. Takes after her mother already. I hope so. They sat together, new parents, exhausted and terrified and completely in love, and watched their daughter discover the world. Recovery was harder than pregnancy. Evelyn spent 3 weeks mostly in bed, frustrated and hurting and desperately trying to figure out how to keep a tiny human alive. Catherine was a difficult baby. Colicky, fussy, refusing to sleep for more than 2 hours at a stretch. She's punishing me, Evelyn said at 3 a.m, walking the nursery with a screaming infant. For being ambitious, for thinking I could do everything. She's a baby. She doesn't have an agenda. Adrian took Catherine, gave Evelyn a break. She's just loud. Like someone else I know. I can't do this. The foundation, the estate duties, motherhood, it's too much. Then don't do it all at once. Delegate, rest. Let other people help. I don't know how to let people help. Learn. You're brilliant at learning. So Evelyn learned. She hired a nurse to help with Catherine, promoted Miss Green to executive director of the foundation, started saying no to social obligations that didn't matter. Slowly, painfully, she learned to not do everything, and discovered the world didn't fall apart without her constant involvement. The foundation expanded to 23 schools. Miss Green proved to be an exceptional leader. The government funding created sustainability they'd never had before. Catherine grew, still difficult, still loud, but thriving. And Evelyn found a new rhythm. Not the perfect balance everyone talked about, more like controlled chaos. Some days she was an excellent mother. Some days she was an effective duchess. Some days she contributed meaningfully to the foundation. Rarely all three on the same day, but that was fine. She was learning that good enough was actually enough. The ceremony happened when Catherine was 6 months old. Parliament was honoring the foundation's work with a special recognition. Evelyn was invited to attend as the founder. She almost didn't go. Catherine needs me. She's been fussy all week. Catherine has a nurse. And me. And will survive a few hours without you. Adrian fastened the clasp on her necklace. Go. Accept the recognition you've earned. What if she cries? Then we'll comfort her. What if... Evelyn. Adrian turned her to face him. Go. Let yourself be celebrated. Let yourself have this moment. You've earned it." So she went. The parliamentary hall was packed. MPs, foundation supporters, journalists, and unexpectedly, dozens of her students. Mary stood in the front row, grinning. Evelyn felt tears burn. Lord Harrington, who'd questioned her so aggressively before, gave the introduction. The Ashford Educational Foundation has transformed women's education in England. 23 schools. Over 2,000 students, a 96% literacy rate. These aren't just numbers. Their lives changed, futures created, possibilities realized. He gestured for Evelyn to approach. She walked to the podium on shaking legs. "When I started this work," she said, "I thought I was just teaching women to read. I didn't realize I was part of something bigger, a movement toward equity, toward recognizing that education isn't a privilege reserved for the wealthy or the male. It's a fundamental right." Applause. I'm honored by this recognition, but the real credit belongs to the teachers who show up every evening, the students who attend classes after 12-hour work shifts, the donors who believed in this vision, the MPs who passed legislation supporting it. She looked directly at Lord Harrington. "And even the skeptics who challenged me to prove this work mattered. You made me fight harder, build stronger, prove not just that I was right, but that I was right in a way you couldn't ignore." More applause, some laughter. "I'm a duchess, a mother, a wife, a woman who was told to be quiet and decorative and invisible. I refused. And in refusing, I found my purpose." Evelyn's voice strengthened. "Every woman here, every woman reading this in tomorrow's papers, you don't have to choose between being feminine and being powerful, between motherhood and meaningful work, between fitting in and standing out. You can be all of it, simultaneously, messily." The students in the audience started applauding. Then others joined, MPs, journalists, supporters. A standing ovation. Evelyn stood at the podium, looking out at hundreds of people celebrating work she'd built from nothing, and felt something fundamental shift. She wasn't fighting anymore, wasn't proving herself. She'd already won. The walk home was quiet. Evelyn and Adrian rode through London at sunset, watching the city transform from day to night. "You were remarkable," Adrian said. "I was terrified. Didn't show. I've gotten good at hiding fear. You've gotten good at everything." He took her hand. "I'm proud of you, in case I don't say it enough. You say it plenty. I want to say it more. Want to make sure you know." He stopped. "You changed me. Completely. I was closed off and scared and convinced that distance was safety. You proved me wrong. About everything." Evelyn leaned against him. "I was pretty convinced you were hopeless." "I was. You made me better. We made each other better. There's a difference." They arrived home to find Catherine screaming. The nurse looked frazzled. "She's been crying for an hour. Won't take a bottle. Won't sleep." Evelyn took her daughter, and Catherine immediately quieted. "She just wanted her mother," the nurse said, looking relieved. Evelyn walked the nursery with Catherine, humming softly. Adrian watched from the doorway. "Natural." "Hardly. I have no idea what I'm doing most of the time." "None of us do. We just pretend." "Is that your parenting philosophy?" "It's my life philosophy. Pretend until it becomes real." Evelyn laughed softly. Catherine was already falling asleep, tiny fist curled against Evelyn's shoulder. "We made this," she whispered. "This whole life, this family." "You made it. I just finally got smart enough to participate." "Stop doing that." "Doing what?" "Giving me all the credit. We're partners. Equal partners. You fought for me. Defended me. Changed yourself when it would have been easier to stay the same." Evelyn looked at him over Catherine's head. "You chose me. That matters just as much as anything I built." Adrian crossed to her, wrapped his arms around both of them. "I love you," he said quietly. "I should have said it months ago. Should have said it every day since I realized it. But I was scared and I know. I love you too. Even though I was terrible to you? Especially because you were terrible and then decided to be better. That's harder than being perfect from the start." They stood together in the nursery, holding their daughter, and Evelyn felt complete in a way she'd never imagined possible. This life, this family, this partnership built from ruins. It was messy, It was imperfect. It was complicated. It was everything. 5 years later, Evelyn stood in the gardens of Blackmore Hall watching Catherine chase butterflies. The foundation now ran 47 schools across England. Over 6,000 women had learned to read. Literacy rates among working women had increased by 32% nationally. The work continued, would always continue. But Evelyn had learned to step back, to trust others to lead, to be involved without being consumed. She'd learned, slowly and imperfectly, that she could be multiple things at once. Mother, duchess, founder, wife. None perfectly, all genuinely. "Mama, look!" Catherine held up a butterfly that had landed on her hand. "Beautiful," Evelyn called back. Adrian appeared beside her, holding their son, James, age 2, who'd inherited his mother's stubbornness and his father's cautious nature in equal measure. "She's going to be trouble," Adrian said, watching Catherine. "She already is trouble. Takes after me." "Heaven help us." They stood together, watching their children play, and Evelyn felt gratitude so profound it hurt. For this life she'd built, this family she'd created, this partnership she'd fought for. "Do you ever think about that first night?" she asked. "Our wedding night? When I told you to give me an heir and disappear? Frequently. Usually with deep regret. I think about it too, about how lost I felt, how invisible. You were never invisible. I was just too scared to look at you. And now," Adrian turned to face her, "now I can't look away. You're too bright, too loud, too completely yourself." Is that a compliment? It's a fact. You rewrote everything I thought I knew about marriage, about partnership, about what it means to actually love someone. You rewrote yourself. That's harder. Not harder, just terrifying, but worth it. He kissed her forehead. "Everything with you is worth it." Catherine came running over. "Mama, can we have tea in the garden?" "Of course. Go tell Cook we'll need sandwiches." "Can I invite Mary? She's visiting today." "Mary's always welcome." Catherine ran off, a tiny whirlwind of energy and certainty. "She doesn't know how to be quiet," Adrian observed. "Good. Quiet women don't change the world." "You certainly didn't." Evelyn looked out over the gardens, the estate, the life she'd transformed from a prison into a home. Thought about the students learning to read, the schools expanding, the women finding their voices. Thought about Catherine growing up in a world slightly better than the one Evelyn had entered. About James learning that women could be powerful and gentle simultaneously. About Adrian, who'd learned that love was worth the risk. "I didn't disappear," she said quietly. "No. You became impossible to ignore." "Good." They stood together in the afternoon sun, surrounded by the evidence of everything they'd built and survived and become. Not perfect, never perfect, but real, powerful, transformed. And that was more than enough. That was everything. What? Years later, when people asked Evelyn about her life, about the foundation and the schools and the changes she'd helped create, she always gave the same answer. "I was told to disappear. I chose to be loud instead. Everything else followed from that choice." It was the truth, though not the complete truth. The complete truth was messier, full of failures and fears and moments where she almost gave up, but also full of students who learned to read, a husband who learned to love, children who grew up believing women could be anything, full of transformation, of herself, of Adrian, of the small corner of the world they'd managed to touch. And in the end, that was all that mattered. Not perfection, not approval, not following the rules, just the courage to exist loudly, love deeply, and refuse to disappear. Even when, especially when, it would have been easier to fade away. Evelyn Blackmore had been raised to be perfect. She'd become something better, real. And in being real, flawed, stubborn, impossible, brilliant, she'd changed everything.